And we're live. What's happening, Steve?
Hey, well, great to be back, Tony. I'm here in Massachusetts. It's today about 31, 2 degrees. We just got 7 inches, but it's going to be 0 the next couple of days.
Oh,
So,
we
yeah,
had a couple of days of icy snow and everything, and now it's just raining. And I
yeah,
think we're going back into the deep freeze.
yeah. But then again, I mean, it's January 9th, so spring's around the corner, kind of really. You know what I mean? Sort of.
And here in Tennessee, we get 2 months of winter.
Okay.
We have fall right up until Christmas,
Yeah,
and then it dives into like winter,
right.
and then like March, it starts to become. And we get spring until we get about a week of spring, and it goes right into summer. By the middle of like April, it's 90 and 95. And
Yeah, that's cool. It's funny. I like to say that your mood and the weather are linked. There's a thing that does the January doldrums. But I lived in California for 17 years, and around here it's a 1 or a 10. In California, it was always a 6. It's weird. You never get a 1, you never get a 10. It was just kind of weird. I lived there for years. So the roller coaster ride of seasons is okay. I don't
well,
mind.
the thing about California is, the weather and the scenery
Yeah,
are just unmatched.
right.
You know what I mean?
Well,
You can't beat them.
yeah, it's wonderful there, but it's overpopulated now. So I did my part to make it better. I left, but I spent 7.
But I mean, if you take the weather and you take the scenery out, it's like
Yeah.
it's
It's
nothing
crazy.
there.
I got to say, the frustration was I built a Hemi dart, my Wilshire Shaker Nova, the Rampage dart, and you fire it up, take it out, and you're sitting in traffic. There's nowhere to cruise the damn thing. Get on the 405 freeway at 2 a.m. Okay, you can have some fun. We'll go up to Valencia in the shadows of Magic Mountain. You can do some street racing up there, but aside from that, it was traffic city. And so around Massachusetts, I'm sure in Tennessee, you can jump on the open road and enjoy your car and cruise for a while and not have to sit in traffic. So I don't miss that at all about LA.
Oh, around here we have. Cat is giving me my mic signal. What's my word? Okay, my mic is on. Around here, the traffic like to and from Nashville is hard, right? And local in the city here, it's like a parking lot. But you go 5 miles outside of town, and any time of the day or night, you've got wide open spaces. You just do whatever you want. And the cops here are all car freaks. So it's like you have to be doing like donuts and like shooting your gun out the window, with like a hostage in the trunk for them to actually bother, which otherwise they just wave,
Or thumbs up. Hey, cool car.
You're right. Okay, cool car. I got one just like that.
Yeah, and one time in Los Angeles, I had a Dodge Dart with a 520 inch. And by the way, if you have to launch the show or intro it or something like that, if people are just tuning in, it's fine. But
that's all right. We just roll right into it.
But
I do want to say hello to our regulars here. You guys all came in while we were yapping. Sorry about that, guys. Fubar is one of our mods, right? We have 4 of the best mods on earth, and when you start doing lives, you're going to need mods.
Okay.
Right. So bar guys are Fubar. Our merch. We're only from now on, all of the merch that we do here, like that we print ourselves, is going to be for sale in person. So like the guys, Junkyard Jack guys, are going to be going to events and whatnot. So they'll be taking our shirts and merch, but everything else is going to Teespring this week. So the link that Fubar is posting for our merch, I don't even know if it's still active. Is it still active?
Yes, our website's active. We're just kind of trying to slowing down the printing while we switch over.
Yes. So just for anybody who is interested in merch, and Fubar is always posting a link to the merch. Thank you so much, my brother. It's all going to Teespring next week, and then we'll be doing specialized smaller things here, the stuff that we print, because it's just too much. It's just too much. It's way too much. Poor Uncle Kathy is like stressed beyond, right? So, and what else was it that we want to talk about?
What else do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think that's it, right? We covered it,
Yeah.
right? And then, of course, we've got Steve. And our audience doesn't need to be introduced. The topic tonight, bro, I wanted to talk about oddball muscle cars.
Yeah.
I know that we both like oddball stuff.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm sure that you, of all people, have come across the strangest of the strange, the rarest of the rare, the zeros of none of ones, right?
Yeah, weird stuff is cool. Well, like at Barrett Jackson, I mean, the Scottsdale show is coming up, and like last year there was a 69 GTO Judge Ram Air 4 3-speed manual car.
There you go.
And what the F? I mean, you could get that, and who would do it? But there it was. And in fact, this time coming up, Barrett Jackson, we go the 24th through 30th of January. I think it's History Channel and their affiliates. But we're on the air for 6 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It's going to be a long week, which is great, 40 hours of TV. But one of the cars in here is a 68 Malibu L79, 327, 350 with a 3-speed manual, radio delete, and air conditioning and posi, but like 3-speed manual behind a 327, 350. Why? But there it is.
Well, now you talk about the GTO. Did you ever see the ad? I guess it was for like, it might have been for the 69 Goat. Maybe it was 69, maybe it was 70. I don't know, but I haven't seen this ad since I was a kid. So I don't remember the exact details of it. But I remember it showed you the transmission choices.
Wow.
And it said 3-speed manual standard. And then it said 4-speed, the manual. And then it said, yeah, next to that. And then it had automatic, 3-speed automatic. And it said, boo, next to that.
Wow.
Okay. If anybody in the audience has seen this ad, if they know what I'm talking about, if you could like fill us in on the details. I know it existed, because it planted itself in my head. And I was like, maybe I should be a Pontiac guy. But no, it didn't work out that way.
Yeah. I think it was 67 or 8. Pontiac was good at having pictures of pieces. I think starting out in 63 or 2, they had the 421. There's actually a photograph in the ad of a swept manifold, a 421 manifold, and then the big drums and stuff like that. And of course, I think it was, like you say, that in 67, it was a 3-speed, a 4-speed, and automatic. And all these things were laid out in a studio, photographed in the ad on the ground in front of a GTO. And yeah, indeed, those are it's good advertising, man. It's great marketing when you sell more than the fender. You know what I mean? Show us the guts.
Who was the guy who was in charge of marketing, advertising and marketing back then for Pontiac? You know?
I don't. But I know McManus and Adams or something was their ad agency, and quite often there's a partnership between the ad agency and the engineers and the product planning. But who the names are, I don't know. But I think it was McManus and Adams. I think was the ad agency, as was BBD&O for Plymouth for years. Whoever that is, But
well, I know that Young and Rubicam, who did the Chrysler stuff, was very close with they worked directly with the Chrysler guys, the marketing guys. So it wasn't like it just says, oh, well, here's some cars, make ads for us. They actually worked together.
Yeah. The best kind of stuff happens when they do that. But yeah, oddball muscle cars, 4-door max wedges, 4-door street Hemis. That's the kind of stuff that's crazy and weird, Yeah.
Well, no, I found the first of the 2 known 4-door Hemi cars when I was doing Mopar magazine. Yeah. And that's the white one is in Garlitz's collection, and there's a red one that belongs to a guy named
Klein. Well, go ahead.
Do you know the guy? He's in Vegas.
Well, it said Klein on the dash way back when, and you took that picture. Yeah. But I don't know who has it now. But
I think the guy's name was Dan DeGilio or something like that. He's a Vegas car collector, and he had the red one. And then after we did that story in High Performance Mopar on the white one and the red one, and back then, like these cars were this was in 1986, so they were just rumored. Yeah. Like nobody had ever actually seen any of them. And we did a story in High Performance Mopar about Hemi car production. And because at that time, Chrysler had released the list of all of the Hemi cars built. Yeah. So on the list, there were 2 4-door 66 Coronet sedans. So it was like, oh, that's cool. Imagine if you could find one of those cars today. 2 weeks later, after the magazine goes out, I get an envelope with pictures of those 2 cars. And those 2 cars are in Wichita, Kansas. Wow. And the white one had the motor out of it, or was it the red one? I don't know. One of them had the motor out of it. And then a few blocks away was the other one. How both of these cars ended up in Wichita, Kansas, of all places?
Wow. Yeah. So I remember that. I have that magazine in the next room. And yeah, Tony, I mean, you go back. I'm surprised you got out of the magazine thing, but you were influential in many ways. And I have that issue. Oh, yeah. It was, it was on the cover. I think it said found 4-door Hemi car.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that was good stuff. And I think one was a 4-speed with a Dana, which is nuts. A Dana in a 4-door, right?
No, those are both automatics.
Okay, there's a 4-speed out there somewhere.
The Canadian one.
Yeah.
So after we did the story with those 2, the red and the white one, we started getting pictures from another guy that was up in Canada. Yeah. And he had one, and it was exactly like the others, only it was a 4-speed, and it had a WO hood scoop. It had a WO hood scoop on it. So I guess they had added that at some point. But other than that, it was all stock.
Yeah.
Then one popped up in Sweden.
Yeah. I'm hearing There's many as 6 of them, I understand. There's one in New York, and in fact, I have a lead. There's a fellow named Fred Lee in Belchertown, Massachusetts. Big Hemi guy. He's out there, if you know the thing. But he had a lead on a fellow who has paperwork and I think some pictures of it from way back when. We're working on that still, but there's many as 6 apparently that are kind of known. And the Hemi was available in everything except wagons in '66 because the Mopar Chrysler was trying to get the Hemi homologated and whatever they'd stick it in. And as we know, '66 was the peak year for street Hemi production because they wanted to homologate the damn thing for NASCAR, and they crowned it in anything.
Well, too, in '66 they didn't have any image cars that they were trying to sell.
No GTX.
So they were just selling the Hemi motor and anything that you wanted to stick in it.
Maybe the Charger, but that's the cutest it got. Yeah, right on. Yeah.
In '67, they wanted to like milk the package a little bit more, so they went with the RT for the Dodge and the GTX for the Plymouth, made the Hemi exclusive to those models.
Yeah.
But I found '67 satellites, which were in those magazines.
Galen Govier has one. Apparently, he owned it over the years. Apparently, it's '67. Street Hemi non-image, kind of weird. It's a J code, all that stuff. You know what I mean? But it's not. It's not a GTX or an RT. It's a satellite. I think it is. Maybe it's.
We found 3 of them total. They were all satellites. Didn't find any Coronas. Didn't find any Belvederes. Supposedly there was one Belvedere 1, which was the sedan.
Okay.
A '67 car. So I guess if you got your orders in before they if you ordered early in late in '66, I guess that they honored the order even though the motors weren't available in those packages.
Yeah.
But then there was another one that popped up, Steve. There was a green '66 Belvedere Hemi car. So this one was purchased as family transportation. And this I saw this on I believe it was on the Ham, the Hokie message board.
Yeah.
They were talking about the 4-door Hemi cars, and this guy says, my mom had one when I was a kid. I was like 8 years old, and nobody believed him. Yeah. So he comes back with pictures, like Polaroids, from 1967. Yeah. And his mom, right, which is probably like a 23, 24-year-old girl, is over the hood lashing the valves. And you can clearly see, it's from the side profile, it's definitely a '66 Plymouth. 67, well, it's a 4-door. Yeah. And it's a Hemi, and she's bent over the radio to support, lashing the valves on that thing. So there's photographic evidence of at least one other.
Yeah. Did you describe why mom had that thing? Was hubby a drag racer or something like that, or what was?
He didn't get into it.
Yeah.
But that's a cool mom. Like, why didn't we have moms like that?
Yeah, I know. We had a Volvo wagon, a 122S. Anyway, but yeah.
So what's the strangest thing you've come across?
Well, I mean, when do you stop? Well, okay, there was at Barrett Jackson, I think it was a 3-speed manual, 63 Chrysler J, 300J with a 3-speed manual. I think it was, I'm trying to think, was it a Pont-à-Mousson? God, well, as you know, 1960, Chrysler used a French 4-speed, the Pont-à-Mousson. Right. It was a truck transmission, top loader, kind of like a T5, weird looking thing. And I have never seen one, but I'm pretty damn sure that there was one of those at Barrett Jackson like 8 years ago. It's a 6300, what's been an F or whatever the heck they are, the letters. But there it was, a 4-speed 300 with the long cross ram deal. You know what I mean? So that was weird. I didn't get under it, so I don't know if there's a modern tranny. But the thing with that was that was 1960 only, and the Pont-à-Mousson French, it was basically a truck transmission. It was an aluminum case, and in fact, I think it's Car and Driver magazine, 1960. They did a whole series on a Chrysler letter car. Who knows why? It was probably paid advertising or something like that. But there's 3 different magazines. Car and Driver, not Motor Trend, Car and Driver, which is a little more frou-frou, you know what I mean? But anyway, back in '60, they had 3 installments, the history of the 300, going back to '55. And the car was only 5 years old. But in there's a photograph of a Pont-à-Mousson behind a 413 long ram engine at a car show. And there's the tranny. And that's the only time I've ever seen one. But the long rumored Pont-à-Mousson. But apparently the word with those things was they were put in on a niche line, and they were hand cut, the holes in the floor, and there's a block off plate for the push buttons. It was handmade, just crude stuff. But I didn't take pictures. It was a year my camera was it, but I think I saw one of those. You had a 3-speed or 4-speed man, but a full-size 300 with a manual transmission is one of the strangest things to me. And beyond that, I've seen a fair number of Osco Lambert disc brake equipped 49 through 54 full-size. Usually it's town and countries or airport limos or like Imperial limousines. And what those were,
What was it? Wait, what was the name?
well, it was Osco Lambert was a company. They made safety
Okay.
for like airplanes and forklifts and stuff, but they also Chrysler contracted with them between 49 and 54 to do a thing called the Osco Lambert safety brake, and it was four-wheel disc brakes, but they weren't, well, they were disc. What it was, it looked like a big drum, kind of narrow, kind of big, had fins on it. There was aluminum and iron versions, depending on the year. Inside were balls and ramps that would act on a disc. And it was a disc brake, front and rear. And in fact, on Roadkill's Junkyard Gold, and I think a junkyard in Boise, Idaho, Twin Falls, Idaho, we found a 1951 Chrysler Airport limousine. I think it was a Navy and Air. It was a very austere, but it was an Imperial long wheelbase car with those brakes still in place. And we freaked. We did a whole thing. They had specific rims, specific lug nuts, very weird stuff. But there they still were.
Where do you get pads for something like that?
You can get them. Andy Birnbaum. Crazy but true. You can still get them. It's like they reface what's there. Of course, if it's cooked or burnt, like if it's wasted, then I don't know. But the stuff's kind of there if you need it. But Town and Country is those wood-bodied roadsters and stuff. They often have the Oscar Lambert disc brakes too. So they're not.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, so people. Corvette was the first four-wheel disc. Not so fast. Chrysler had them in 49, 54. It doesn't. It's not a contracting caliper deal, but it's a disc brake. There's a big disc inside of a hub, and it's disc brakes. And some would say the Crosby Hot Shot of 49 was also in that ballpark, and it had a spot brake, which is more identifiable as a disc brake. But
this is why I love having you on this thing, because every time you're on, I learn about something like just totally obscure, and now I'm obsessed to go find. I got to find details about this.
Give me 2 seconds. 2 seconds. I got
a question here. Okay. Well, we could talk about literature and everything later. But Abel, this is a good question. Abel D. Steve, what is the weirdest delete item a customer has deleted when they ordered a car that you have seen? And I know you look for delete stuff.
Yeah, sure. Well, Fred Lee here in Massachusetts back in the late 80s, mid 80s, 86, 87, he had a 4-speed Hemi Roadrunner, original green paint, black vinyl top car. It was a 4-speed car, Dana 354, bench seat, one headrest on the driver's side. And on the build sheet in crayon, one headrest. And check it out, in 68, you could actually, each headrest, I think $2.35. I got a book in the other room, which you could get on either side. If you had a husband and a wife and she wanted a headrest on her side, it could be done. But this was a Roadrunner with one headrest, driver's side only, on a bench. Weird. And it was very real. And it was a parchment interior, and it was original upholstery, and one headrest on a bench seat Roadrunner, which is the weirdest damn thing. But yes, that I saw that with for real. I never.
The headrest itself is something that people really don't understand, because the headrest is not a headrest. The headrest is not designed for you to rest your head against. It's a whiplash protector.
Right. Yeah.
And the feds made them start putting them in the cars standard maybe in 1969.
Yeah, January 1st, 69. Yeah, that's
right. So it was like first came the seat belts, then came the shoulder strap, and then came the headrest, and the headrest is actually a whiplash protector. That's why if you ever sit in a car, I don't know if you guys watching this, you ever sit in a car and you're like, oh, let me rest my head against the headrest. It doesn't work. Just because that's to keep your head, your noggin from going crazy in a whiplash situation.
Yeah. And it's funny too. I mean, along those lines, if you get a chance, read Ralph Nader's Unsafe at Any Speed. It was written, I think, in 66, and he crucified the Corvair. And it is true that Chevrolet engineers, check this, if you find a Corvair, the owner's manual says to run the front tires at something 18 PSI. Why would you do that? That was to counter, to give a different roll couple front to rear, because they knew the car was somewhat tail heavy. Now, the thing with the Corvair, as we know, it had an aluminum 6-banger in the back, right? So Chevrolet basically looked long and hard at the Volkswagen and the Porsche, which, of course, had similar swing axles in the rear. And the early Corvairs, like the Volkswagen, have a swing axle, so you get these weird camber changes. But when it comes to a Corvair, a lot more engine mass. So unexpected thing that happened was those cars were tail happy. To cut the wheel, let off the brakes, like a Porsche 930, the ash will come around. So to combat that, they actually crutched it by having owners deflate the front tires. And it was, if you look at a Corvair owner's manual, I think it's like 22 in the back, 13 to 18 in the front. Really, you'd think the tire would be wobbling, but that's how they crushed it. Well, Ralph Nader said, F this. So he basically crucified General Motors and correctly in a way, started the safety crusade, for better or worse. Sometimes it got out of control. With that said, lap belts do usually more harm than good. Spinal cord separation, your upper torso unplugs from your pelvis when you go through the windshield, and so it's better to have, well, not no belt, but 3-point chest. That's where to go. That's the way to fly. But lap belts only. It's kind of spooky if you're courting paralysis if you get into a mess with that. I mean, better than going through the windshield, but they're not. But either way, it's not good.
Well, I think the shoulder belt became standard in 1968 because it was an
so,
option on 67 cars.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't optional on 66s.
Yeah, I think, you're right. It crept in. We could Google the thing. But the funny thing is, I think the Fed mandated lap belts. I think it was 65, but anchors had to be present in 63. They crept off on it. And anchor points were optional. The anchor points were optional, like in the 50s. And usually the eye hook, the goofy eye hook, Corvette's the goofiest damn thing. And Corvettes had seatbelts in 57 on standard, but that was Corvette. But other cars, nothing. So they had to have an anchor point. You paid extra for the seatbelts, but by 65, the lap belt became standard, and then the 3-point by 68, like you say. And the airbags, it's true, they work. They work pretty good. So safety is a good thing. It's good not to die in your car if you can help it. I mean, 30-mile-an-hour impact used to be often deadly. Back in the day, 57 Chevy, you're getting smashed on the dashboard.
Offhand, I don't remember which years, but they had in the Chrysler products. They have in the package tray behind the back seat are slots for rear shoulder harnesses.
Okay. Yeah.
That were never produced or never offered as an option. I don't remember what year it is. I would have to actually go through my cars and see which ones have the slots. They were there for a couple of years. Like I think maybe it was 69 and 70, and then they took it away. But those cars had a provision to install rear shoulder belts.
Yeah, interesting. So as they say, the engineers protected the design for a thing that never made production. So it's been protected, but it didn't happen. That's weird when stuff like that occurs. Yeah.
What do we got here, Kat?
Oh, here's
one vacation 1000. I know nobody cares, bro. We care. I care. Steve cares.
That's me. That's
pretty caring people. I had a 93 Oldsachiever SCXW41. I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
They only made 500. That's probably why I never heard of it. And I had a special HO Quad 4 and a 5-speed homologation race car in street trim.
My question is, I'm not hip to the world of road racing, but I'm not sure whether the Achiever would have been campaigned to have been homologated. But it's performance options are usually hiding in the option book. The Quad 4 and a stick would be a pretty nasty little combo, potent.
Well, I had those cars, not that particular one, a factory race type of deal. But I've driven Quad 4s with sticks because they were around in New York. It's a very popular engine. The Cutlasses with the Quad 4s were all over the place. And a lot of people got them with sticks, which was unusual for New York. There was a higher percentage of those cars with sticks than you would find normally.
That's weird.
And they were peppy. They ran good. And until you had to put a water pump in the damn thing. So did you ever work on those?
I never have. I can only imagine. Is it buried down? Where is it even?
You don't want to.
Yeah.
VCMD propulsion. Does he know about Mercury Marauders? I'm sure you know a lot more about than I do.
Sure.
They have a 69.
Yeah, they have a blacked out trunk and behind the back window. That was an option, but those are wicked things. Yeah, the X100. Yeah, and the Ford. What's up with Ford and the 429 2-barrel? But Pontiac did it was 455 2-barrels, I think there was, but Buick or Oldsmobile, Oldsmobile had 455 2-barrels. They called this SX.
Pontiac did also.
Okay, 2-barrel.
Like in the Safari wagons and stuff, they had a 455 2-barrel.
It seems so wasteful, but I get it at the same time for fuel economy. I get it.
They wanted you to spring for the extra $45 and get the 4-barrel is what it was.
A bait and switch.
Right. I have a 69 Marauder that is not an X100.
Okay.
429 2-barrel column shift bench seat, solid lifter, rear brake coolers.
Solid lifter? Wait, what? Solid lifter? Yeah. That's weird. That's like, okay. Huh.
Column shift, bench seat, solid lifter. Wait a minute. You've got a 429 2-barrel with solid lifters?
It's a little weird. I don't know if it's been added, but I don't know. The K in the 5th spot. Huh. Well,
5th digit K would be for a race car, right?
Well, K goes. Let's see. Hang on.
Let's
see. Mercury, Lincoln Mercury. 1969. You see, the K would be for a, yeah, what's what it says. You have 420 at 429 2-barrel carburetor, 429 4 barrels, an N code. 460 would have been an A code, cops. So, and there's also the P code 428, which is a different animal. So yeah, the K code is the 429 2-barrel. I don't think it had a solid lifter cam. The only 429 I know of was the 71 429 Super Cobra Jet with solid lifters and what 11.71 compression in 71. Yeah, those 429 Super Cobra Jets in 71 were a major last hurrah from Ford. But 69, I think that would be a hydraulic cam. But hey, what do I know? You know.
I mean, who knows? But rear brake coolers, how did that work on that?
Don't know. That's new to me. It could be there are some like scoops or something like that, but I don't know. You know, don't know. Yeah, heavy duty brakes, a trailer towing package, something like that. There might have been some ducts or something on the backs of the brake backing plates, but don't know. I've not explored it. Yeah,
That's an interesting car, though.
it is. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the Marauder.
What else do we have here?
Of course, Marauder early on.
All right, Drag Pack Merc, who obviously knows his stuff. K code was a standard 429 2-barrel, not solid lifter from the factory. Well, I mean, it's possible the engine was replaced at some point.
Yeah. I mean, well, solid lifters, as we all know, are something that require maintenance. And generally, in a mass production setting, the warranty department does not want to release anything with solid lifters to anybody, anywhere. You know what I mean? So it's a special case when that happens. On a 2-barrel, I can't imagine it. But hey, you know,
well, I mean,
2-barrel had them.
That's the thing, man. So 1969 car, and like I remember the 70s. I was a mechanic in the 70s. So if you got something like a 69 car and it had a 429, and let's say it had thrown a rod or the bottom end was lunch, you'd go to the junkyard and you'd grab the first 429. Oh, it's a 69 429. Boop, I don't care what's on it, but throw it in. And you'd swap over the intake method. If it was a 2-barrel, you'd put the 2-barrel back so you didn't have to rerun all of the stuff, and you'd send it down the road. So that would be a very typical, you know, service station type of engine swap of the era. So that's probably how that thing ended up in there with the solid lifters and the 2-barrel intake.
Could be, yeah.
What do we got, Kat?
They're talking.
Kathy is monitoring the comments as we babble on. That's we do. We just fucking babble. How is your channel doing, Steve?
Good. Yeah, I've got with 35,000 subscribers, and something kind of new. I've teamed up. Well, one of my things is that I love tech, but I'm not. Well, here's the thing. When I make a video, it's one job too many for me to set up the camera, run around, set the timer, get in front of it, and then expect it to follow around. So I always have to have somebody running the camera. And that means having somebody reliable. And yes, Kathy, right. You know, it takes a team, right? So anyway, I've had 2 friends, great people, flame out, okay? And they just couldn't, whatever. You know, I said, hey, dude, you're an 8 out of 10, but I need an 11. So I let you go. But anyway, so I hooked up with this thing called High Octane Classics in Auburn, Massachusetts. But they're a division of Lundgren, Toyota, and Honda, a big New England dealership. But High Octane Classics is basically their toy shop where they get like 90 cars in stock, from a Ferrari Daytona Roadster to like a Resto-Mod Corvette or whatever, that kind of thing. So I give them 1 day a week of me doing videos about their product line. Hey, check this car out, their website. Here's what it has, blah, blah. And they give me 2 days with their tech guy to shoot my videos. So it's wonderful. We're going on our 4th week, and we also shoot or record new episodes of the podcast. So the good news is I finally have somebody who can shoot the stuff, upload the stuff, schedule the stuff. I don't even require editing. I say, look, I'm going to make it easier on everybody, pretend it's live and right into the camera. So we were in auto wrecking, you know, and it's wonderful. People are responding to it. And here's one thing I got to say that, you know, anybody who knows, you know, my history and stuff, Motor Trend and a variety of different TV networks and stuff I've been involved with, but it's been such a struggle in my entire life just trying to get ideas for programs on the air. You know, Supermodels, Roadkill's Junkyard Gold, those are uphill struggles that you can't believe. And what happens quite often is between the producer, the me, and the viewer, there's problems in the form of decision makers who don't understand what you're trying to do. They need to get the hell out of the way. And with YouTube, they're out of the way, which is wonderful. So I thank all the viewers who just tune in. And I would say too, anybody who has a story to tell, start a channel, man. You know what I mean? Because if you have something compelling to do, go. And it seems like, you know, come on in, the water's fine, you know? So I'm so thankful. I'm not waiting for the phone to ring and waiting for Motor Trend to say, hey, season 4 of Junkyard Gold. I don't have time for that now. And I'm thankful for it. And
this is the future. This is the future of automotive, and they know it. They know it. You know what I mean? So, but that's besides the point. Your channel, just so people who don't know.
Yeah, Steve Magnante YouTube channel. Yeah,
That's it. The Steve Magnante YouTube channel.
Steve Magnante, you'll see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what we
I
do,
think Fubar put a link. Fubar is always on top of that. Fubar is awesome. He always puts links to stuff. And you guys, we got 633 people watching right now. You guys, if you have a channel that you want to promote, please feel free to post a link to it and tell people what you do, right? And tell people what you do, and please feel free to you can't post a link. How would they get people to look at their channel?
They can just say, hey, I have a channel.
Okay, that's it. Okay, so do it that way. Just say, hey, I got a channel and I cut potatoes. So whatever it is that you do, right? So anybody who's interested can go over there and check it out and like and subscribe and everything. I always say, a rising tide raises all ships.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
If it's compelling, people will tune in. There's something I watch. It's this girl who plays the drums, Sina Drums. I don't know if you ever seen it, but it's this gal who plays the drums like she did Inagata Vita. It's just German or something like that. But it's like 3 million views, and it's amazing to watch. So I mean, you name it, there's a channel for it. You know, it's
absolutely.
Good. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's kind of like, I hate to say it, but a lot of regular television. I mean, let's face it. Network battle of the TNA. Remember that whole idiotic crap, the 70s and the 80s. And today, a lot of programming is just like a waste of time, and reality stuff, the housewife shows and stuff. I mean, there's somebody watching it. I don't know who it is, but just fast, short circuiting around the idiot, the lovely people who make the decisions, they're good at something, but they should do something else. And I found a lot of automotive channels are run by non-automotive people, and it's crazy. So I'm thankful to just get that out in my past. I'm not even thinking about that anymore. So
no, Steve, you and I covered the same grounds, worked basically the same circuits, and that's why I was in and out of the magazine business. I would do it for a couple of years, get disgusted with the idiocy of management, and bye, see ya, and I would like disappear again. And then 3 years ago, it was 3 years in September, we started doing YouTube, and I was like, I could just do what I want to do. You know what I mean? I could just put out what I want to put out, right? And it's just, you never look back. Once you start getting paid from YouTube, you never look back.
Yeah, that's a nice bonus. And just being able to tell a story like this right here. This is a Johan model. Hey, can we show the Johan logo? Let me call the guys in LA. We're gonna have to put tape over that. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? I mean, just stuff like that. Like, what the, just it's just this fear that we're gonna get sued or some crazy thing, and it's just idiotic. But anyway, I'll leave it alone.
Well, pardon, one of our awesome regular, and he's here all the time. Congrats, Steve, on the 36,000 subscribers. Ask Steve if he'll be attending covering the Automania in Allentown this coming weekend. Good for channel content. I plan on going Saturday the 15th.
No, I won't be there. I don't travel, but I mean, sure, it's probably a great show. My thing is what I do 4 kinds of videos. Basically, I go to the best ones that people love are the junkyard crawls, where I go to a junkyard and I give a vehicle a voice. Like last week, we did a 1966 Dodge C800 LCF truck with a diesel, and LCF is low cab forward. And who knew that from 55 through 60, that pickup truck cab was used on these heavy trucks from 61 through 75 alongside the new cabs. So stuff like the Ford C600 cab over. So if it's in the junkyard, I'll give it a voice. It was a 1936 auto car with next to a Bantam cable excavator. So I mean, you name it. If I find it in a boneyard, we did a Toyota Supra, a 79 Supra, the first year. Good car, cool car. But if I say to myself, I didn't know that, there's a good chance that people will watch the video and tune in. So the junkyard crawl, not gold, crawl. If I say gold, I get sued. But junkyard crawl, which is mine, I can say that. Those videos are very popular. We also do Musclecar crawl, where we go to like High-Octane Classics or a car show and just like, hey, ram airs, let's compare all the ram airs on these cars. In fact, let's look at the ones that don't do anything but look under the hood and see the ducts and protection to keep the engine from getting wet, these holes they put in the hood for eyeball, or the fake Trans Am hood scoop thing, the whole shaker thing. They don't do anything, but it's awesome. They're cool, So those are also very popular. And then I do stuff in my garage, and then finally the model car stuff, which it's not as popular, but I do it because I love it. And when it's snowing or raining, I can't be outside, so I got to be in the house, make a video. So I try to make a video. They launch every day. I spend about a day or two a week clicking off, 7 to 10 videos, and then they run on the channel. So anyway, yeah.
We got a question here. You're from the Vermonster.
Yeah.
Steve, how is Gary LaPlante Winkle Auto?
Yeah. Gary LaPlante, he runs Winkle Auto in Milford, New Hampshire, and he's an eccentric fella, and I say that with respect. He drives all over the country to save like a 64 Plymouth Valiant 273 two-barrel 4-speed with
I saw that. Yeah.
and he bought that car because he liked it. He bought it here from, I don't know, down south or something like that. And it sits in his yard. He doesn't part them out. He saves them, but he sells goodies and pieces. Call him, he's a junkyard owner. You know what I mean? But it's Mopar specific. Good dude.
That car would make such an awesome daily driver.
The floors were gone, as you saw, but it's fair enough. Otherwise.
Drive Hive Jeff. Thank you for the super chat, Jeff. A lot of YouTube is real people doing real things on a real budget with real automotive knowledge. Yep. Nobody owns you and nobody is calling the shots.
Yeah,
but that's it. YouTube is a free-for-all.
Yeah, nobody's saying you're too teachy. You're too teachy. Right. I'm going to make a shirt. There's two people who know what I'm talking about, this bastards. I'll leave it at that. Too teachy. But anyway.
Oh, I get that too, man. I get that too. The trolls are just amazing. It's like they'll find something no matter what you do. They'll find something and just.
Yeah, no. These are network executives I'm talking about here.
Oh, okay.
Be quiet. No, they don't need to be shot. I'm kidding. But
you haven't done the troll thing yet.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't engage. It's okay.
I'll send two of them your way. Okay, you'll get a kick out of these guys. Simon Cochran, right? So, Simon, I know you're watching. You watch everything that we do. Go show Steve some troll love, right? And who's the other guy? I got this guy Brian Cabral, right? He has a channel about me.
What?
Like his channel, he has a whole channel.
He has like I love Uncle Tony. You know what I mean?
What's that?
What's he call it? I love Uncle Tony or no?
No, it's just Brian Cabral, and he calls me Uncle Sanford. I don't know where that comes from. But he literally does a video about me every single day. It's the most amazing thing.
Is it lovely and positive and supportive? Or
oh no, this guy's berserk.
I'll tell you a funny story. At Hot Rod Magazine, we had this guy. Just a little bit before, we had this guy who he had a website. He would every month he would crucify that month's issue of Hot Rod, what we got wrong, and he's gone. You know what I mean? Hot Rod's still around. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's a thing where everybody wants to have a voice, and I get it. Sometimes people maybe mean well, but their side, I don't know. I just don't engage. I don't know. I don't.
No, people say like, "Oh, ignore the trolls." I don't want to ignore them. I love the trolls. They're awesome. They always show themselves. It's like you don't even have to worry about it and you'll see when they type something, it'll be like all lowercase, like just run-on sentences. You can see that they're typing out of rage. You know what I mean?
Right. Valve float.
White Trash Motorsport. Auto 1303, Tony Steve, have any muscle car oddities occurred like engines options that were not supposed to go into the next model year, but found its way to eliminate the previous year's parts inventory?
Yeah, look at American Motors vehicles, and you'll see a lot of case. They call it build out. You know what I mean? That's what they take. If there's 1970, I guess 73, and you see slant 6 A bodies with 8 3/4 rear axles. They were building out the leftover 8 3/4 A body stuff. And in American Motors, you'll see a lot of things like, Gemmer power steering pumps instead of the whatever, sagging off. And so, weird stuff. So it's, auto manufacturers are, they're making sausage. They're getting pieces from many places. And sometimes there's a shortage. There's a fire at the hydromatic plant, for instance, in 1952. That happened at Lincoln. The hydromatic plant, General Motors, burned to the ground, like 80 acres. Some crazy thing happened and made the news and stuff like that. So there's a shortage of hydromatics. So I think Lincoln used like manuals, and they utilized the Packard Ultramatic for 10 seconds. So weird stuff happens,
White Trash Motorsports, thanks for the super chat. Thanks for the plug. Did we plug White Trash Motorsports? We're doing it now. Here you go, White Trash Motorsports. Okay, Mr. Will, Tony and Steve, please tell us about MC Oddity. Cars built with options that weren't for the general public, and after people took delivery of the car, tried to buy them back. I saw a 70 Fury with cop options.
Huh. Well, what I know is I read Hemi's Classic Car, one of the few paper magazines that's still around. I love it. Hemi's Muscle Machines, they're good stuff. But it was Hemi's Classic Car. They have a column called "I Was There," and they invite people who worked in the factory to tell stories. Sometimes it's ugly, sometimes it's cool. But there was one guy who described the plant manager walking his car down the line, and at every stop he'd say, put that one in there. So they actually put like the plush stuff and things that shouldn't be, because he was the manager. Let's do it, So he walked his car. So that sometimes will account for weird cars, that have things that shouldn't be there.
I came across years ago. I came across a '68 Roadrunner. There was a bucket console car.
Okay.
Which was a factory bucket console car. The guy showed me it was all legit. And that, as you know, in '68 it wasn't available like that. You can only get a bench in the '68 Roadrunner. Okay. But it was a post car.
Wow. Yeah.
Factory bucket console, and it was probably exactly that. It was. One of the guys was like, okay, I'm going to walk my car down the line. Hey, I'll put that in. And you know what I'm saying? You can pull the strings and get it done.
Yeah, sports satellite interior in the Roadrunner, buckets in a car. Yeah.
And you talked about the cop car stuff. I saw one on Facebook a couple of weeks ago. Or we're going to get that in a second.
Yeah. That's kind of weird. I don't know. I got trouble with that. But so
there was it's not the same thing, but it just made me think of it. So let me spit it out while it's on my mind. Is a black 65 four-door Fury, right? 426 Wedge 4-speed.
Wow. They made them, yeah.
And this car was all together. It was like had the right air cleaner on it, right? It was a time capsule, and it's something like just should not have happened, but it did. And please
tell me it wasn't parted out for the 426 and the 4-speed. You know what I mean? That was a classic. In the 70s and 80s, oh man, let's get that 426, put it in dark. It's a 4-speed. Did that happen to it? Was it in one?
No, it's intact together, survivor car.
Awesome. Yeah, a lot of cars, as you know, they became targets for parting out. But that's cool. That's a wicked car. And the 4-speed was an option. The C-body, it was absolutely an option. So
Rapid Transit Garage. A buddy of mine had a shop and had an untouched 71 wagon that came with a 340 2-barrel.
That's tough. I don't know, man. I don't know. Yeah, what kind of wagon and all that? I don't know. I didn't need to see any more. The thing is, the 340, it's conceivable. It was like a 318. The 318 blew up. They put a 340 dealer warranty motor.
Right. Exactly.
You got to do something.
The 340s weren't assembled as like, okay, which intake manifold are we going to put on this? The motors were assembled in lots and then shipped over to the assembly line area. So it's not like they had a special run of 2-barrel 340s and one of them could find their way into this wagon. That wouldn't happen.
And the 340s have big ports. There's no 2-barrel manifold. The 360 manifold might fit, but that would be an anachronism, as they say, because the 360, the big ports and stuff. So I don't know. That's a weird one.
Dave Marshall, Tony Steve, ever see any cars that was crazy fast for no reason? I had one. I had a 69 Galaxy with a 392 barrel that would outrun 396 Chevelles. I think they dying weird things from the factory.
Yeah, I don't know.
It might have just been a combination of gearing and
or slow 396 Chevelles.
Or very slow 396 Chevelles.
I got a buddy who swears his brother's 273 4-barrel would go $8,000 and stop it.
Yeah,
stop it. No. You know what I mean? But
I did have a 72 Roadrunner 400 4-speed, and it was the quickest and fastest stock Mopar. And when I say I was never inside the engine, I jetted it. It had the original exhaust on, manifolds, the original exhaust, everything on it, and the car ran 1280s.
Wow. Well, something's going on there, but
consistent. Okay. I mean, every time you point it.
Okay.
It was just the happy combination. It was a bare stripper car, 355 gear, 4-speed, and it was just the right combination. It was the happiest car ever. And she booked and go and ran 1280s.
Yeah. One thing I've recently really zeroed in on is the beep beep horn in Roadrunners. It's easy to look at a thing and not see it. You ever check out the way those are mounted to the car? They sit on a really strange, like a web, so they can vibrate. And there's no horn. There's no trumpet to them. A lot of people look at it, there's a whole thing to it. The mount, there was a lot of engineering that went into the mount. If you look at it, it's like 3 slabs of, it's not stainless, but it's thin metal, and they allow the horn to resonate.
I know, I've got 2 of them.
Yes, indeed.
And they have aluminum windings inside instead of copper.
Yeah. But they're
Deuce Coupe sent 5, whatever that number, that foreign thing is. Thank you, Deuce Coupe. Just had a book delivered about factory lightweights from Detroit. How wild did it get between Ford, GM, and Mopar? Any favorite stories?
Well, My thing is that I'm a Mopar guy at the core, though I appreciate everything. But we know for sure that General Motors was working on Hemis. Pontiac and Oldsmobile all had Hemi engines running. And if 63 hadn't happened, the Ides of March, I call it. And as we know, General Motors was being targeted for antitrust legislation. The thing of it is, let's see, GM had market share. General Motors was basically outselling antitrust legislation, right? So they were being targeted. So management said, hey, we got to lower our profile in every way possible, out of racing, and a variety of other things happened to do. So they stopped racing in March of 63. The Super Duty program ended. You know that there were 421 GTOs on the books. You know, with the big block, the Z16 Chevelle is a small taste of what very well probably could have happened. So if GM didn't pull their own plug in 63, you can bet there would have been a whole bunch of crazy stuff that probably would have made the street Hemi seem tame. You know, that's my 10 cents on that.
Now, see, I'm Mopar to the core, right? But my favorite car, even more so than the Max Wedges or anything from that era, are the Swiss cheese cats.
Yeah,
I mean, that's as, you know what I mean? Like, there you go. Now let's just poke holes in the frame.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Aluminum fenders, you know,
aluminum fenders,
windows, you know.
They had a run of aluminum exhaust manifolds also.
Right, they would drip. There's reproductions of those things, actually. There's a guy doing repops. Now, I was at the Pontiac Nationals probably 8 years ago now, but they made aluminum manifolds for pretty much all popular applications. I think it was Ram Air Enterprises or something like that. But
Okay.
I hope they still make them because that's cool. But they said that they would make drips of aluminum only at like wide open. You know that they didn't make them to melt, but they could be melted. Apparently, that was the thing with them. But that's nuts. An aluminum exhaust manifold. Yeah, they did it. You know.
Yeah, the Pontiac that lightweight era, the Pontiac nailed it. They had it. Yeah. When I was a kid, there was a guy named Jimmy Donovan who used to run around on Staten Island, and he had his daily driver was this a lightweight cat.
Yeah, yeah.
And this was in like 1972, 1973 when I was a kid. And you'd see it in traffic every once in a while, and it was a factory lightweight cat.
Did Nunzi Romano end up with that car? You know,
not that I know of.
Okay, just curious.
Not that I know of. Yeah. Nunzi had a lot of cars, but the way I knew Nunzi was only at the shop, and the shop was very tight, so there was only room for one or two of his cars and then customers' cars that would come and go. But I know he had others. I don't know if he had that one.
So yeah, so how wild did it get? Incredibly wild. You got to wonder if GM hadn't pulled their own plug, it would. Who knows? You know. Yeah.
You know, Nunzi's shop. You ever see the movie? I think it was The French Connection with the car chase scene under the L.
Yeah,
that was past Nunzi's shop.
No kidding. That's cool. Yeah. Does he have any stories about, hey, the day they shut down the street? Does he ever talk about that or not? Did you ever?
No. But it was back in the day. It was just known that was the street. That was the where they.
That's cool. That's cool.
Okay, I'm looking for notes. Let's see.
Uh-oh, Kathy's hunting. Yeah. Dead air. Okay. My friend had a 74 Camaro 352 barrel, would keep up with the 4 barrels and got better fuel mileage.
Yeah, it could well be if the 4 barrels were really detuned, but yeah, I don't know.
So obviously Ford, Chrysler, General Motors had the super stock packages. Yeah. Did any of the smaller or any of the, was there any Studebaker? Did any of them ever throw their into the stock super stock?
I know the Studebaker had with the 304, which was seldom seen. There was supercharged stuff, but they weren't going for FX. They did not have the 7-liter engine. So, and I always wondered to myself, how come Buick never made a 425 dual quad GS 425 Skylark? You know what I mean? They never went that far, but they could have. But you can bet that there were engineering prototypes for sure. And Buick did build some full-sized Wildcats with 425 4-speed 4-door dual quads. We saw one on Roadkill's Junkyard Gold. It was unbelievable. It was a 4-door. It was an automatic on 4. It wasn't a 4-speed, but dual quads, factory car. It was the QR code on the block. It was the original thing. So,
how intact was it? Did it still have the intake and everything?
The carbs were missing. There was a set of some weird carbs, but the air cleaner was there, and it was the real thing. And there was locks on. It was a '64 Buick, and it was kind of weird. Why have hood pins with locks? And we opened the hood, and there it was. We did a piece on it. It was at I forget, but anyway, if you just Google dual quad Buick Wildcat, Roadkill Junkyard Gold, blah blah blah, you'll see the episode.
Those dual quad Buick motors at a glance will fool you because with the air cleaner, they used an air cleaner that didn't
You
look
get-
like anything special, and it completely covered the fact that it had 2 4-barrels.
Yeah. They were pretty cool. Yeah. But yeah, you got to wonder, if Studebaker had done something. I mean, for me, one of my favorite cars on the planet is a '64 Dodge or Plymouth 2-door post, race Hemi, aluminum bumper, aluminum door, aluminum foot. That's such a beautiful car. I love those things. The '64 race Hemi with the aluminum, with the torque thrust on the front, the magnesiums. That was just beautiful. One headlight on the Dodge and Plymouth. Just beautiful cars. No heater, pull straps on the doors for the windows. Just that was the epitome of less is more. To
The
me.
864.
Yeah, 64. 65s are all right, but no.
No, the designation for them was
Yes,
864.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Hey, Steve. This is from Hemi Cuda. Hey, Steve, have you ever heard of a 71 Nova Sun Coupe?
Yeah,
I had 1 of 4 produced.
Yeah, it was probably a fabric roof opening. A company called Gold of Germany, Golde, and the Alexander brothers did something to do with that too. But yes, it was a factory option. I don't know about number 1 of 4, but possible. But yeah, I've seen those like on Buick Skylarks and even Plymouth Dusters, same company, Golde. If this fellow looks at the hand crank that puts the fabric back, it'll say Golde.
So it actually had a fabric top, like a Citroen.
Yeah, it wasn't a hard roof. It was basically a fabric pullback deal. It was interesting. A buddy of mine's got a '72 Duster 318 Twister with factory gold sunroof. It was a convertible or something like that called it. But yeah, on Novus too. Yeah, same company, but it was a tier 2 thing. The car had to be shipped for a conversion. It wasn't done on the line. But yeah, they made them. Oh yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. Steve, do you have any stories of experimental engines making it into cars for testing, street racing around Detroit?
Yeah, well, the only way I know is just reading things like, Joe Oldham and even like Jim Wanger's Glory Days. If you get a chance, check that out. That's Jim Wanger's recollections of being, Ram Air 5 GTOs versus Jimmy Addison and, of course, John Vermeersch with a '62 Galaxy with a camera, which is it should have been a '64 or 5 in my book. But anyway, the '62, that's all right. But that was a real car and a 4-speed car. That was in magazines. And so, yeah, this for sure that they did a lot of weird stuff. It's cool.
Yeah, all of the Chrysler stuff, everything that came through Chrysler, like through the regular channels that was available through the dealers, before it ever made it there, it was all used on the street.
Yeah.
So you had not street Hemis, but you had race Hemis '64 in like late '63. They were screwing around with those things on the street. As soon as they get a running engine together, a prototype, they'd slam it into a car and then go out and burn rubber with the thing just to field test it, because you can only learn so much from a dyno.
Yeah, I saw some in any city, as you know, keep your eyes open. You'll see like sometimes mules driving around. If you see a manufacturer plate, you're looking at something weird. Well, I had to drive about 31 miles from my house in El Monte to downtown LA to Hot Rod. And I would occasionally see Chrysler. Remember the LH300s, those weird cab forward, like the Chrysler Concorde,
Sure.
The rounded things there, front wheel drive, V6, whatever. Well, I saw there was a small fleet of those. I'd see them once in a while in black primer, but the nose was a little too long. And in the back, they had 2 big square Flowmasters with 2 pipes coming out each side, one on each side.
Really?
And up front, there was a dust cap, not a castle nut. On the back, there was a cotter pin and a nut, not a dust cap. In other words, it was a rear-wheel drive. Those were LX Chrysler 300 mules being driven in LA. Of course, I never had a camera when I saw these things, but they had slightly longer front. Like the distance between the wheel and the windshield was a little long. But there were mules. There were 300 mules before the 300 body was ready for unveiling. Holy smokes, so in plain sight, but there were, if you had it, and I saw something crazy too. The Ford Explorer, as we know, has grown from, it's less and less off-road and more of a Lincoln kind of thing. When they went to independent rear suspension from the beam axle in the back, they had the mules in LA. And I saw one time at a gas station, saw a Ford Explorer, a Lincoln Navigator is what it was. And they had a fake 8.8 diff cover screwed to the bottom in front of the gas tank. It was just a diff cover hanging there to hide the independent rear suspension, but they actually took the time to screw the profile of an empty dust cover, an inspection cover under the car. I was like, I looked at it, it's like, what are you doing? But it's, the foil, Linda Pretty or whatever, Brenda Pretty, and photographers, Jim Dunn from snapping shots of the new Ford independent rear suspension. But if you look a little bit, especially in Detroit, you'll see mules zipping around regularly. Hang around outside of Dearborn, Ford's Engineering. Go hang out by the front door, and you'll see weird stuff going by. Sometimes they fly overhead, like I'm kidding, but it's cool. Mules are wicked. They're cool things.
So this is Mr. Rodder's neighborhood. That's Dallas, who does the lives with me on Wednesday nights, the Tech Talks.
Okay.
He also owns the AHRA. So he's got a channel called Mr. Rodder's Neighborhood. Guys, if you know Dallas, Mr. Rodder's Neighborhood, go over there, check him out, subscribe, do all of that good stuff. He says, Jones and Benezek, 70 Buick Grand Sport was a stage 2 test mule in 1970 LA street racing scene.
Yeah, I think that car was profiled in Popular Hot Rodding magazine. There was actually a feature on it. Yeah, it's stage 2 Buick stuff. Yeah, it's cool. The best way to test your stuff. And of course, Oldsmobile had aluminum 455s. James Garner had one. He went road racing.
His off-road car, right?
Aluminum 455s were kind of out there quite a bit in Detroit on tests and stuff like that.
Well, I've told the story before. I spent the weekend at Arnie Beswick's place back in the 90s. And he has 2 aluminum Ram Air 5s. Yeah. Not just the heads, aluminum blocks, aluminum Ram Air 5 blocks that they cast specifically for him.
Wow.
He had that kind of name at the time. This was in 1970. Yeah. And he had that kind of name, and he had started using Chrysler motors. He had 2 cars. One of them was using a Chrysler. The other one was still using a Pontiac. They pissed off his friends at Pontiac, and they were like, what are you doing? He's like, look, I can't compete. The bottom ends are too weak. He says, make me an aluminum motor, and we'll run it. So they cast him 3, I believe it was 3, all aluminum Ram Air 5s. One of them went into the car, and it still didn't run. They had problems with it. So that's why he went to Chrysler from that point forward. But he kept 2 of them, and he's still got them in his loft in the barn on his farm.
May he live forever, but I hope that nobody calls the scrap guy. I'm sure it can't happen. Somebody's going to say,
no, it won't happen. Too many people know the treasures that are in that place.
Yeah. Got to say, speaking of mules, I just finished reading this book here, All Corvettes Are Red. This was done in 1996. This is the story of the C5 Corvette from beginning to birth. And they talk about the beta build cars, the LS engines in iron, and all the dead ends while GM was going through bankruptcy and stuff. Great book. If you like weird
Corvettes are red.
Yeah, and it was about the C5, which now is an antique, but it was the first Corvette with a rear transaxle, a balsa wood floor, and it's a great book describing the ins and outs, the daily struggles. And they basically, this guy here, what's his name, James Schefter, I don't know him or anything like that, but he was invited in by General Motors, an outside looking in. He was the journalist, and they let him sit in and take notes, sworn to secrecy. After the car launched, he could then write that book. It's a fantastic book. And of course, also, Corvette from the Inside by Dave McClellan, who was the second chief engineer after Duntop. He wrote a book called Corvette from the Inside that brings the C4 Corvette to life, talking about the step over, the Targa bar, and all that kind of stuff. And the engineers, the dual port motor, which is an antique, but them trying to make that thing happen and make torque. And the Insider's writing is cool, but it's so rare because, as we know, Detroiters can't talk about what's going on now because
Dave McClellan wrote that book.
Well, no, a guy named Dave McClellan, who was the chief engineer for Corvette.
Okay, not the announcer.
No, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I used to work with him at Hot Rod TV. Actually, good guy. Yeah, I think he has a GSX Stage 1, by the way, in LA. Still has it. It's a GS 455 Stage 1. Excuse me, not a GSX, but yeah, I think it's a 4-speed car too. Anyway, yeah, McClellan, good guy. Yeah, McClellan, Dave McClellan.
What we got, baby? She's zoning out.
I'm sorry.
She's not doing her job, Steve. She's zoning out.
Okay, so this is JW. He says that he's he's a South Avenue veteran.
South Avenue, Fountain Avenue. Yeah, man. Thousands and thousands of runs there.
That's cool.
Okay, I tried, this is from Mr. Will, I tried buying a 71 Buick Centurion that had a stage 1 option, confirmed with the build sheet. Someone paid over the asking price, always wondered how rare that car was.
Yeah. The question is, was it a 2-door or a 4-door? If it was a 4-door, holy smokes. The stage 1, as we know, was the hot dog engine, lower compression.
Isn't the Centurion automatically a 4-door?
It's a full-size car. I think they made some 2-doors too. But it's the big car, the C-body, like an Impala. Bigger. Right. That's pretty cool. Yeah. But it may be, I don't know, Centurion. Well, hang on. Let me get
I could be wrong, but I think the Centurion was.
It could well be. Yeah. Well, send us a note. But yeah, it was a big.
That was the bare bones version of it.
It was kind of low. It was not an Electra. Yeah, it was the
Right.
Centurion. I think was cheapy, which is cool.
MGB. I remember seeing a 1984 Escort GT Turbos back in 1984. They built 1,500 of them. None was sold at dealerships. The EXP Turbo was sold at dealerships. Dad was a dealer at the time. So the EXP Turbo was its own car. So you're saying that they had that same combination in the Escort.
Okay, the Escort. Okay, yeah, EXP. Okay, yeah, the EXP, of course, we think of Bob Glidden's, Boss 429 Pro Stock with those crazy sunken headlights. Like, what the? That was basically an Escort sports car. But yeah, so the Escort and EXP are two different things. But cool.
I thought the Turbo Escorts were just a regular standard European thing. Maybe they didn't sell them here.
Escort GT, I don't think we had a turbo here, but the Escort GT was the poor man's 5.0. You know what I mean? They were everywhere. Usually red, with the wide gator back tires.
Right, but they had that whole hot hatchback thing going on in England.
Yeah.
And I always assumed that the Escorts were turbocharged.
In Europe.
What was it they got?
Let me think. Do we have? I have to look at my books here, but I don't know. I remember them being sort of the poor man's 5.0 in a way.
Yeah.
Front wheel drive. They were interesting. Yeah.
Let's see. Tanaman 2000. Hey, Tony and Steve. I have a 1987 Trans Am GTA with automatic, light sensitive interior, rear view mirror. Would you happen to know how many Firebirds were made with that mirror? That's the one that automatically adjusts.
I think so. Yeah.
And people just automatically turn it off because you're there in your head, and all of a sudden it's like.
Okay. I know that. Well, Jim Matheson at Pontiac Historical Services (PHS) probably has data on that. So go to PHS. Jim Madison, bang on his door. Maybe he can tell you. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Chris Greenaway. UTG Steve Meggs. My father owned a 68 Meteor Lemoyne.
Wow.
What the hell is that?
Canadian. Yeah, got to be Canadian.
Must be. What language? I guess that's French, right?
Yeah, I think
Lemoyne. 428 Cleveland convertible. Only 500 made, fastback and convertible, let alone the 428 Cleveland.
Yeah,
428 Cleveland.
Yeah, some mixed metaphors there. Cleveland's a small block or a medium block,
Yeah.
428, that's a little weird. I don't know. Yeah.
That might be the Mandela effect.
Yeah.
It's probably the Mandela effect, where that actually was a common thing, but we're on a different timeline, and so we missed that. For us, the Clevelands are small blocks. Okay. Let's see. Thank you, Mr. Will, for the super chat. Centurion was a 71 through 72 that replaced the Wildcat. Was a loaded LeSabre. Okay, so it's the opposite of what I thought it was. Came in coupe, convertible, and four-door. Okay.
That's weird, though. A 455 stage one big car, not a midsize. That's cool. Now, if you could tell me you had a Buick Apollo with a 455, of course, they never made them, but that would have been wicked. The little Nova critter, That'd be nice. But
I'm sure we've got a bunch of new people on here. So for anybody who doesn't know, this is Steve Magnante, who is just famous. He's just a famous guy. Steve, why do you even talk to me? You're so famous.
Well, I would say, Tony, I mean, in 1986, 87, 88, I was street racing in Palmer, Massachusetts. I always had a copy of Cars Illustrated next to me, and you wrote that stuff. I mean, that was, to me, before I wrote, you were like writing, and yeah,
But Steve has got his channel, Steve Magnante. So if you remember his show, Junkyard Gold, now he does Junkyard Crawls on his channel. Go over there, subscribe, ring the bell, right? There's not many channels you want to ring the bell on. You don't even want to ring the bell on my channel. You don't want to see half the crap I put out. We just post stuff real quick to pay the bills, okay? But this guy, on the other hand, actually puts real effort and knowledge into his videos. So you absolutely want to ring the bell and watch and get all of the notifications and get a Steve Magnante tattoo on your upper chest. So this way people can identify you as part of the clan as times go forward. And he has T-shirts, he has books, he has, you name it.
There's no merch at this point, but I'm kind of.
There's no merch.
Yeah.
But there will be merch.
Well, yeah, there are books. I mean, I've done a bunch, but they go. You find those at Barnes and Noble or Amazon, whatever. Cartech books, whatever. Right. I have to buy them for myself to sell them, so I don't do that. But it's all right.
Joe K, Steve Tony, do you ever foresee the late 70s, early 80s malaise period cars being sought after? Yes.
We're there. We're there. Yeah.
We're there right now.
Trans Ams are 40 grand all of a sudden. You know, a good one. Really good.
I was at the track this last summer, and somebody that parked next to us had like a '76 Granada, and I was going nuts over this car. You know, it was like showroom. You know, well, I mean, it wasn't showroom clean. It was showroom original.
Yeah.
Right. Everything just the way it came from the factory, and I was geeking out over this thing, man, because it's like, yeah, Malaise era cars are they're the last of what we would consider to be American cars that would start. Let's say the 1955 Chevy, I believe, is the car that begins the modern era, right? Or I should say the classic era. Like you have pre 55 Chevy, you've got you all falls into that pre-war and post-war thing, and then the modern era, or the classic era, I should say, begins with the 55 Chevy and it ends with the Panther cars. You know, that front wheel V8 rear wheel drive, right? You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Hop cars, Crown Vics.
Yeah, anything that fits. Up until recently, up until the last couple of years, it had to be a muscle car. It had to be like a rare, exotic, you know, special thing. But now anything that fits that category between the 55 Chevy, you know, and the last of them, right? And that would include the Malaise era cars, and yeah, absolutely. I see them as becoming huge in demand, because not only are they still of that traditional thing, but now they're old enough to be like that, like they look noble. Like if you remember the 70s, Steve, you see a Cordoba, and a Cordoba was like, what the hell is that? That's a goofy looking thing, okay? But now you see one going down the road and you're like, that's majestic, right?
Well, another thing that happens, you know, I'm not a food geek or anything like that, but they talk about cleansing the palate, right?
Yeah.
Time cleanses the palate. When you used to see these cars all rusty and crawling down the road sideways because the leaf springs were rotten or torsion bars were gone, you didn't want to see them ever again. But now that so much time has passed, that now when you see them, your palate's been cleansed and some fresh flavor all of a sudden. That's what it is. And it's also, you know, you start to get nostalgic about stuff that you remember. And when you don't see them for a while, then you see it again. Holy smokes, that was cool. It's the oldest game in the world, but it happens over and over. And I always say that, you know, a collector car is like there's a conveyor belt with a light shining down on one spot. The belt keeps moving, but everything eventually gets its time. And gremlin.
That's a great analogy.
I mean, it's what it is. Once it's in the light, it usually stays in the light. But sometimes they come in light and they go, you know, once they pass through that circle of light, it's done. They keep going and off they go into this, you know, whatever Model Ts. Frankly, you know, you got to be old enough to remember them when you were a kid. Model Ts, well, those people are gone for the most part, you know. But with that said, it does seem like everything has its day, everything. And that means that unmolested, pure examples are the ones that will be appreciated, you know. So they're out. It breaks my heart when I go to junkyards and I find, like, you know, 79 Malibus upside down in piles and stuff, because there was a 78 Monte Carlo 305 4-speed car, Saginaw 4-speed. It was a fact. It was a black car, red velour. It was a top of the line car when new. It was upside down, just pushed around by a bulldozer in a junkyard. I couldn't believe it, you know. But it was rusty. It was rusty. But, you know, and turbo Monte Carlo 78 or 79 and 80. Those things are special, and they're starting to come along. Aluminum brake drums in the back. GM was trying, you know. But yeah, everything has its time, I think, you know. And the Malaysian
Sean Fat Tire guy Thomas, if you like weird, Steve and Tony, I like weird. What do you guys think of the Rec Trans Discovery design built by Larry Shinoda and Bucky Knudsen? I don't know. I've never even heard of that.
Yeah, I think it had a Renault front wheel drive power plant. Weird. It was like sort of like a motorhome kind of thing. They're weird. You have 3 lug nuts, if I remember correctly, but I think it was Renault.
Rec Trans.
Yeah, Google it. 78, 79. They're funky, interesting. And they play in. Remember the GMC made those motorhomes for a while that were sort of the precursor to that. They were fiberglass. They had 2 axles in the back, old Tornado front wheel drive power. It was the
I know the one I've seen those. Okay.
Even Barbie even had one, and, you know, in 1/8 scale or whatever it is. But yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
But they fit into a weird time. Yeah. You know. And Bucky Knudsen, I think he died in a plane crash. No. I don't know. But anyway, it ended, I think, as a result of one of those guys. I forget. I don't know. It's wrong. Knudsen? Yeah, you might have. I don't know. I'd have to Google him. Anyway.
But Danny Boyd says he finally knows someone who knows how to pronounce Renault.
Yeah. Well, I had a Le Car in high school, and I always say this: "No way I'll ever have another."
No way I'm driving that thing again.
For you, Joe, you know, the French cars. Yeah,
They
the
were
Worcester Mass.
miserable cars, man.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, a crisp Renault car, they're money. They're money. But then the R5, the mid-engine rally car, those are nuts. But that's a whole different thing.
The thing I remember about those cars when they were around was the 3-lug wheels, okay? And it's like they had to feature that this thing had 3 lugs. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like they somehow or another they just designed it in such a way that it stood out as like, look at my freakery. You know what I mean?
The wheel had 3 spokes. The aluminum wheel had 3 spokes to
Yeah.
accentuate that. We had one. I had a 4-door. My mom bought the thing new, and it was goofy. But the seats reclined flat, which is kind of nice. Anyway, long time ago.
Have either of you played with Jensen Healy? I have not.
Well,
I had a
Jensen
73 4-speed.
Yeah, we're talking Jensen Interceptor. Jensen Healy was a 4-cylinder weirdo mobile. We found one in the junkyard. But the Interceptor is a cool piece. Hell yeah. And the ones after 71 or 72 had 440s. There was even a thing called the 440 SP 6-pack. Yeah, they made them.
Yeah, well, I had a friend of mine that had an Interceptor with a 440. I didn't know they built them with 383s. I certainly didn't know they built them with 4-speeds.
Yeah, that's kind of rare. But I will say that the 383 at top 71, it's weird. In England, I don't know if maybe they bought some remaining 440s, who knows what. But in 72, the Interceptor gets a 440. Before that, there were 383s. Kind of weird. And there was an SP 6-pack. And 72 and 73 get a 446-pack in England in an Interceptor. Kind of weird.
So now the question is now, if you got a 4-speed and that's 70, did it have a pistol grip?
Yeah, I don't think so, but that's kinky. I like it. I like the idea. Probably had a goofy little ball with some rubber and stuff like that, because there wasn't a lot of interior in those cars. But I found one of those in a junkyard. But anyway, they rusted like crazy, but they're cool. And they did a Hemi-powered Jensen, by the way, the FF Hemi. There was a thing called the Jensen Interceptor FF, which if you look at them, there's Jensen Interceptors have like a vertical front grill thing in the fender. If you see one, 2, then that would be the all-wheel drive. But the Jensen, the Ferguson Formula all-wheel drive. Ginger Baker from Cream had one of those, and he crashed it. Anyway,
Really?
yeah. He wrote about it. But yeah, the Jensen Interceptor FF, all-wheel drive, but the 383 car is automatic only. But that was a weird thing. But there's one of those done with a Hemi in 1968. So another weird car is the Monteverdi High, which is a mid-engine street Hemi-powered Swiss supercar, 3-wheel milled. Kinky, weird stuff. Anyway, Matchbox.
Well, there was the one, the Shah of Iran had one. It was a Hemi car, 65 Hemi car.
Wow. Oh yeah, the Shah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
What was that called now?
Hussein. Well, it was the Hemi Hussein.
Hussein, right?
Pan-Am road race car with a rate. Yeah, Town and Country Chrysler Plymouth of Scottsdale, Arizona, which also sponsored the original Golden Commandos car, if I remember correctly. Town and Country, they sponsored that car, but it was basically like a Lola with a race Hemi in it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
They called it. He actually had one of those that he drove. That was his driver, his daily driver.
Yeah, he was a Saudi prince, and he funded the car, but he might have. I don't. Yeah, that car apparently came up for auction maybe 8 years ago. That's real. So anyway, yeah, the Hemi. Anyway, all this weird.
Jeff, thank you for the super chat, Jeff. In the mid-70s, Mr. Norm sold Kawasaki motorcycles in the building across the street from his dealership. I know that building. I went through that. I went through every single nook and cranny of that building, every floor. Me and Brian Coleman. Brian was running
the Supercharged 65.
Yes, yeah, blown nitro 65 car.
Yeah.
And I met up with Norm. This was back in This is before he came out of retirement. We're the guys who knocked on his door and said, "Hey, you're famous." And he was like, "What?" So he took us to we went through the dealership. Do we still have any of the stuff that I grabbed when we were in the dealership?
Yeah.
It had been closed. It had been boarded up for a couple of years, but there were still like the customer tags in the drawers, that they hang off the rear mirrors. I had a couple of them. I sold them on eBay. This is maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Yeah. The original Mr. Norm stickers were all in the drawers, but the building across the street, it was like a 2-story or 3-story warehouse type of building. And that's where they sold they did big vans back then. They were doing conversion vans because after the Musclecar thing was over, it was like they needed to keep going. Yeah. So he became a van guy and the Kawasaki motorcycles.
Yeah.
But Brian and I went through that building, that warehouse. I mean, from top to bottom, and we found like brand new never installed Hearst Competition Plus shifters. We got a couple of those.
Was,
There
was
was
he
all kinds of nooks and crannies.
was he like everything's for sale or just take it? What was
He was
this?
just taking it. It was like he was trying to sell the building at that time.
Okay.
He didn't care what was in there. All the stuff that was valuable. In his mind, none of this stuff had any value.
Yeah.
He had moved on. See,
Yep. Yeah. He moved on. Yeah. I get
he
it.
moved on. Once the 70s, the 80s or so was
Yeah.
over, he never looked back.
Hemi
So
could
he
have
had no idea that the Mopar thing was big. He had no idea he was famous.
Yeah. Yeah. That's yeah. It's funny how that works. You know. Yeah. Yeah. Huh.
All right, what do we got here? Let's see. I traveled with Norm to shows for about 10 years. We were able to save a few lot signs about 10 years ago. Okay.
That's cool.
Just Coop, thank you for the 5 thing. I don't even know what that is. It's foreign money, but thank you, so I appreciate it. Mopar worshiper myself, is there enough parts being reproduced today to build a period correct 62, 64, 68 Mopar quarter mile Warrior?
Well, yes and no. I heard some ugly news. Auto Metal Direct does fantastic stuff. They just discontinued all of their pre-65, the 62 through 5 floor pans, quarters, discontinued. Now, here's the thing. The tooling exists, but it's going to take another combine like Jim Cramer or those folks to pool their resources, get another run made. But the trouble is, Auto Metal Direct, they'd far sooner sell 2,000 Camaro doors for $80 profit than 20 65 coronet quarter panels for a $200 profit. So sadly, right now, get them while you can. Apparently, that stuff's drying up. Tooling's still around, but it's a matter of pushing the button to make that stuff happen in China.
He's wanting to know if there's enough stuff to build a body in white, is what it comes down to.
Well, no, roofs and stuff. There never has been. I don't think.
Right.
You can do a '68 Charger or Roadrunner, damn close, But I don't think those cars ever were that full. I will say that they're out there. The Texas, we not to beat the drum, but we did a thing in Texas, and basically there was 280 cars out in Texas, and a number of 2-door posts sold for under $3,000, some for $300, and I couldn't believe it. The auction went well, but some of that stuff went for nothing. Couldn't believe it. 62 Plymouth Savoy 2-door post, Land 6 3-speed manual, $380. A roller, ready to be max wedge, ready. Somebody stole that car. I was going to bid on it, but I bought my cop car for $5,000 instead. But anyway, whatever. Anyway.
Okay, Cave Dave. I had an Oddity. It was a 67 Charger that had a counterweight attached to the rear end. Looked factory. If you went into a slide to the right, the counterweight would throw to the left.
Well, this sounds like one of those Smokey Yunick kind of things. I mean, with all respect, Cave Dave, all respect, send us pictures. That is worthy of a magazine cover story, because I've heard of things like that. There's so many things that people remember that are kind of like who knows what and stuff. But pictures, please. Pictures, please. That's what I say with that.
We have, there's no doubt that you probably had something under there, and that's what it was. It was a counterweight of some sort. But it definitely did not come from the factory. I can tell you that beyond the shadow of doubt.
The pendulum, I can see that, the idea of that, but that's not something Chrysler they would have advertised not out of that, But
somebody very good at fabricating,
yeah.
You know what I mean, can duplicate something that would look factory like that. But no, Chrysler never built anything along those lines.
And how would that work? There'd have to be a chain or something to zip it to the other side when you're at this. Interesting idea. But I know the Rams supposed. Well, here's the thing: in '64, it was I think it was Popular Hot Rodding did an interview with Jim Thornton, asking, do you have sliding weights in your car? There was rumors around that the Rams were using masses that moved. It was just alter wheelbase stuff, but that kind of thinking and speech is part of the picture.
Well, they had, sliding ballast was a thing for a while.
Okay.
If you go back to like 1969, pre-Pro Stock, when it was heads up super stock,
Yeah.
and then 1970 or so, they used to mount ballast boxes. So you got the roll bar, okay,
Yeah.
the main hoop that's inside the car, and then you got the 2 down bars that go into the trunk.
Yeah.
Okay? They used to fabricate boxes, weight boxes, that on launch the box would break free and head down. So it would plant.
Was it hidden in the tube of the roll bar? Was it something that was visible? Because tech inspectors would have said, "What is that thing?"
They did away with them. They made it sliding ballast or movable ballast is illegal now. But some guys would use weights, like the weight, kind of weights that you lift, and it would all be mounted on those 2 downward bars.
So set it high, let it slide when you punch it, and yeah, I get it. Transferring mass.
I used Kathy back in the Fountain Avenue days. I used Kathy as mobile ballast. I would have her sit No lie, man. I mean, she's sitting right here. If I'm lying, I'm dying, right? I would have her sit forward, okay, like between, like hang over the seat like this. And when I would say go, her job was to throw all of her weight into the right corner of the car.
I love it.
So I time it. The starter's fingers would go to the 2 count, almost to the 3 count. I'd go, and as soon as I felt her weight hit, I'd stomp it. And we'd get out because we had no traction. It was like impossible to get anything to launch. And we won a bunch of races like that.
We're like, hey,
she was
Kathy,
my mobile ballast.
We're like, hey, Kathy, here's some butter. Eat some more butter. Okay.
Right.
But I gotta say, Kevin Cruz here with the Packard V8. That's a story that hasn't really been told. The Packard V8 came along in '55, a couple of years too late. Packard was sinking, and it came out. It was a 352. There was a 374, 390 something. It was a good engine. Here's the thing with the Packard V8: it had 5.5-inch bore spacing. That could have gone 500 cubes. Packard engineers designed that engine to go as much as 500 inches. And the word is that Ford, you hear these different things, but Ford may have considered purchasing the Packard tooling, but Packard only got 55, 6, and 7, or 55 and 6 for sure. And then it went to Studebaker engines, I think in 57 and 58. So that was an all new V8 engine that only ran 2 years. And it was a killer. It could have been. The Packard Caribbeans had dual quads. I mean, it was a 370. I think it was a 390. It was 374 and 352 cubes. There's a 332 as well. But the Packard V8, that's a story that needs, it's an amazing engine. Yeah, the Golden Hawk had the 352. They were heavy, but surprising engine. But only made for 2 years, so there's nothing available for speed parts. There might be some old Evans stuff from 55, but anyway, interesting question.
Todd, did from the sound of things, I need to order the patch funnels, my 63 Dodge 440. If anything is available now, man, I would seriously, and this is for anybody who's working on any project right now that needs sheet metal parts, because all of the stuff comes from China. There's all kinds of weird things going on with China, and I don't know how long any of this stuff is going to be available. I think that once the supplies of it dry up, whatever's in the warehouses and whatever containers coming over, I think that's it. So if you're, I mean, that's it probably for a good dozen or so years, or the rest of our natural lives. So if I were you and you're in the market you need sheet metal that's available to any of these places, order it now. Don't wait. You snooze, you lose. I guarantee this time next year, none of it's going to be available.
There's 24 floor pans left. That's it. And I got one of them coming. But yeah, Jim Kramer at Kramer he has that stuff all in stock. In fact, he funded most of it. So patronize him,
Okay. Martin Hildebrand, thank you for the super chat, Martin.
Yeah.
CSS, Custom Sports Special Dodge Trucks. Either of you guys have any experience or knowledge on this package? I know you would.
Yeah. I know. Yes. 62, 3, and 4, and 5, I think. But it was basically bucket seats, stripes over the roof, and you could get a slant 6 or a 318 poly, but you could also get a 383 4, but you could also get the 426 street wedge, automatic only. And when you got that, they had traction bars and a sun tap from the factory. In fact, if I can run to the other room, I won't, but I have a dealer brochure from the 64, I think it was, but they had stripes over the top, the hood and the roof, and there was a 426 street wedge, but no Maxwell wedges. Some people think there was, but there were a couple of match racers built, a San Diego radio station.
That's right. I forgot about that. Actually, I did a video on those.
And they were all long wheelbase, so there was no short wheelbases. That was a short wheelbase Max Wedge truck, that white thing. But the Custom Sport Special was the first muscle pickup, by far beating the Little Red Express or the Lightning, any of that kind of stuff. It was a 426 wedge, and the 413 was even possible in a half tonner in 62. So I mean, yeah, the CSS is a niche special thing. Yep. But you could get them with a 318 poly, so you got to choose wisely. But bucket seats was Dart, and the Dart center console in the middle was on the floor. It was basically a sporty pickup, but they could be had with an engine. But CSS doesn't guarantee muscle, but it can.
Okay. Tony Steve, Otto, any classic engines with only a few years production that were impressive and should have run longer? All of them. I mean, really.
Right. Yeah, it's just one of the the Packard V8. Again, that was and if you ever build a Renoir visible V8, the Packard, I think, was their inspiration. It's not a small block Chevy, but that I got one behind me. In fact, it's right. That thing I'm pointing at, that thing in my back, that is a Renoir visible V8. and it's patterned. It's not a small block Chevy. It's not a Ford. It's probably a Packard. It's generic, but that thing right there, that's Tester's 426 Hemi, which is a brand new thing, and that's an amazing 1/8 scale, 1/4 scale, excuse me, 426 Hemi. And the crazy thing is, the people at Testers, when they tooled that thing, it's all new. It has Hemi chambers, valves, all that stuff, but it uses the same crankshaft as that. They took the Renoir crankshaft, the guys at Testers, and put it in the Hemi. If you look at the same thing, the rods and the crank are the same. Pistons are different, Hemi pistons and a Hemi. But if you want to build a great model, that thing right there is astonishing. It's wonderful, and it actually turns. The only thing it doesn't do right, it has gears instead of a chain, so the cam turns backwards.
Backwards.
So it's not right, but it's right.
But the valve train and everything works.
Yeah, there's a battery in the thing that freaking goes around. It's a soundtrack.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
there's a rubber band that runs it that always slips, so I just turn it by hand, But Testers make those. They're about $80. They're great models.
The one that you have there, does it actually run now?
Not anymore. Yeah, it's. Shall I get it? I'll bring it over if you want. I'll show you.
I was going to say I'd love to end this with that thing running. That would be awesome.
I have to turn it by hand, but I'll show you.
No, at the end of this. No, Steve, wait.
Right.
That's how we'll end this. That's how we'll end this. But back to that one question: the 302 Chevy. I don't know why that should have stuck around, even though it didn't have a place really in racing, anymore past that period of time. They should have kept that around. That was just
I don't know. I tell you, my thought on the 302, right? The LT1 is what the 302 really should be. The LT1 is a 302. The thing with that,
okay, that's true.
I mean, I like the 302. I love the idea that it was a homologation engine, but frankly, give me the cubic inches and the heads and the solid cam and the aluminum. That's an LT1. I don't know. The 302 is cool because it's a homologation motor. But
the 302 revved a little freer. It had the geometry, but
yeah. But so does an LT1. I'm just saying.
No, you're right.
I know a guy in California. We call him Retro Rick. If he's watching, I don't know. He doesn't do computers, so he probably doesn't. But we put him in hot rod. He had a 55 Chevy with a hydro. He was a diehard cast iron 4-speed hydromatic guy. And he had a 301, but he swore by small, like 283s, the smaller the better, higher RPMs. And Rick, you're insane. The higher RPMs, the shorter your life is. You got no torque. Why do you want to build a 440 cubic inch small block, tell people it's a 283 and blow their doors up? I never got that. But, when your cubes are your limit and you can't put a crank in it, well, yeah, but I say get as many cubes as you can. I'm just saying. If I had a 302 Z20, I'd put a 420 cube stroker in the thing and run 12.
See, I wouldn't. I want that thing floating around at $7,000 until the valve springs just give up.
You can do that with a 422, but anyway, I don't know.
And I'm not really an RPM guy, but having driven those, I've driven a couple of them. They're so silky up there. It's hard to. It's one of those engines that unless you've actually driven the thing and you can feel it and smell it and everything else, you can't really. What? Am I yelling? I'm sorry. I got excited. I'm going to yell and Kathy. Okay, never mind. I love the 302 Chevys. But okay. Import still sucks. $5. Thank you. Import still suck. With enough Googling, you'll find a story about a 486 cubic inch Packard from the early 60s or late 50s. Talks about all the speed parts.
Yeah, they're out there. Trouble is, it's not repeatable. You know what I mean? Because they're great. I say they're a great engine. They came in, they went. It's weird though that apparently Ford was looking at buying some Packard body tooling and all kinds of weird stuff. Why would Ford buy somebody else's cast off shit? But apparently it was a fact that was considered. And like a lot of things were probably considered, but
Well, the thing about the Packard engines were absurdly heavy.
Yeah, but the thing is, they had bore spacing. The only thing they had is they had more bore spacing than a 454 Chevy. The only thing, the Caddy 500 also had, I think, 5.5 inch bore spacing, which is like, so in other words, Packard protected that for 500 cubes. They were ready.
Yeah, but they weighed more than the nailhead Buicks and they weighed more than the 426 Hemis. You're talking about like 900 pounds worth of engine.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't know. I've seen a few of them and they don't look horrible, but then again, I don't know. I don't know.
They're beefy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're beefy. Like there's a 426 Hemi has a lot of air space inside the motor.
One thing that's a fact is a 426 Hemi head weighs 58.2 pounds, a 396, 68.2 pounds. A big block Chevy head is more than a 426 Hemi by 10 pounds. Look at a wrap motor head. We're talking iron.
When the manufacturers in the 1950s, when they were building their bigger engines, they deliberately made them heavy because it dampened down vibration.
Right.
It made the car feel more solid and stable. And so that's why if you look at any of the engines, like the early Hemi, the whale motors, now those are just dense, right? There's a lot of airspace in them, but they're freaking dense.
Right.
And the nailhead Buicks, just, I mean, ungodly thick metal, right? It was, the Packard was like that too. And it was so that those cars, because they were intended to be put into luxury cars, and they wanted that solid, stable, vibrationless feel. So they made all of this cast iron in there to dampen any of the engine's harmonics, so you wouldn't get that like whirring going down the road.
Yeah, and they weren't thinking cafe. It was the farthest from your mind. So, you know, fuel economy. So, yeah, different time, different design, different goals.
But that's the big drawback when you're looking at any of, and that's why the small block Chevy took off the way it did, because it was a practical engine. It was light enough you could put it in anything. You know what I mean? And you didn't kill the weight train, you know, the weight bias on the car. That's what made of all of its attributes, the thing that made the small block Chevy, aside from its physical size, the engine to use in the late 50s, the early 60s, was the fact that it was light. It was a lightweight casting. Nothing else was like that.
Yeah, nice big ports too for what they were, you know.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, as you know, a lot of the flathead guys, the overhead valve revolution. If you look at Hot Rod magazine for like 1952, 3, 4, they talk about the Mickey Mouse valve train. It was actually people as afraid as we are now of electric and hybrid. There was that type of fear over push rod overhead valve engines, the Mickey Mouse, the rocker arms, the valve train, the lifter. People were scared. The flathead people, which were such simple engines, but asthmatic as hell, couldn't breathe. You know, there was actually a rebellion against overhead cam or overhead valve engines and overhead cam stuff. Forget that. You know, now it's nothing. It's no big deal, but it's funny. Yeah, if you look at Hot Rod, like at 51 too, they called it Mickey Mouse valve train, a push rod and a rocker arm, you know. But anyway.
Paul Cavazola, this is a good one. What do you guys think about the lunchbox, the small block Mopar run by Mario Rossi in the 1971 Daytona 500, one race only?
A 305. I don't know much. I just know that there was a 305 that was a rule bender in a Daytona that apparently ran very well, but it was taken out by a crash. But it was a Keith Black 305.
Right, Keith Black did them. It's a D-stroke 340.
Yeah. What's the lunchbox? What lunchbox means? It's a term.
They called it the lunchbox because in that day in the pits of the Daytona 500, they brought the Superbird in. All the Chryslers had Hemis in them. Okay. Although I believe there were 1 or 2 wedges, because the wedges were getting a break. Right. All of the Mopar products had Hemis in them, but that wing car there had because they had outlawed the wing cars at that point unless you ran a 305. Yeah. So that they called it the lunchbox because somebody was walking past the car and said it looks like somebody left their lunchbox under the hood.
A little tiny thing. Okay, I get it. Yeah,
there was a little small block in there, but it was. I actually had a lot of parts from that KB 305 because
it had Richard Petty 8-bolt flange on the crank, right? I think it had a Hemi flange on it.
Yes, it had an 8-bolt flange.
Weird. You know?
I had so what happened was Richard Petty bought up all of the KB. I'll say. So KB was doing the research and development work for Chrysler on the 305 for the Trans Am and for NASCAR. Okay, when they pulled the plug on that program after that in 1972, there was no longer anything with the 305. So Richard Petty bought all of that stuff and used it on a short track deals. So he bought all of the KB
stuff too. Right?
What's that?
Probably for the 355 stuff in 74, 56, right? He probably used the W2 stuff, you know. And
well, that was the NASCAR stuff, but the short track they were using the smaller deal, or they had classes. I don't even know how that works, but at any rate, Richard Petty bought up all of the KB stuff, and then I bought up all of the Richard Petty stuff. So this was about 10 years ago or so. I had a huge amount of, and I had a lot of that 305 KB / NASCAR.
Was there some Indy stuff too? I think there was a 305 Cube Indy motor for a little while too. That was along.
They tried it everywhere. They were putting that motor everywhere, and at one point they put a set of Gurney Westlake heads on it.
The Rod Shop wagon,
the Rod Shop, right?
That's cool. That's cool. You know, yeah. One thing that's kind of interesting in 1971 or 2. There's a stock car racing magazine, Roundy Round, NASCAR stuff. There's a shot of Richard Petty and Maurice Petty putting a wedge engine, a 426 wedge, into one of their cars. It has a Hemi block. As you know, Hemi blocks are square. And so this is a real known fact. They used to plug the oil return and use Hemi lower ends with max wedge heads to satisfy the no restrictor plate wedge thing in 7234. Like what the heck? Well, nobody ever did that. Today, nobody puts wedge heads on a Hemi. It's kind of a weird little thing. But if you look at that picture, like, wait a minute, that's a square. The corner of that block is sticking out. That's a Hemi block. Wait a minute.
I like this crossbolt mains on that wedge.
Yeah, it's funny because that picture's standing out in plain sight. Nobody wrote a caption about it. There's never a story on it. I'm like, what the hell? Very weird. Unless you know of one. But I used to read those stock car magazines, and there was not a word about the Hemi block onto those wedge heads in Petty's 7234 non-Hemi wedge cars. Anyway, uselessinformation.com.
Gruesome's Garage says that motor actually won an IndyCar race. I believe it. Now, was that with the Westlake heads on it, or was that with what would have been the W2s?
I don't know. I know that Al Kirschenbaum, the esteemed writer, he was writing a book on that. He was asking me, this is like 20 years ago, Steve, you got any information on that? Well, keep an eye open. And, I don't know if he's finished the book. I haven't heard about it, but he was writing a book. So there's a history to the Indy 305 or the Mopar LA pushrod. And
who was that campaign that, do you know?
I don't. You have to Google it. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. I think maybe an ST. Nah, I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, Robert Lee says the Westlake was a 318 stock block Indy motor. It actually won a race.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so now you're talking about the one that was in the rod shop car? It was a C.
The heads were Indy inspired. I'm not sure how many cubes the rod shop. I get the Carcraft story and tell you, I'd read the story, but that was the rod shop roundup story in Carcraft 71. But I don't know how many cubes they had. But yes, the 318 Indy, the Westlake stuff, and there was similar heads were done for Mercury, the Gurney Westlake stuff, 68 302. So the same idea applied to a Mopar taken from a Ford previous design with tweaks. But yeah, it was interesting. It was just big ports, like an LS1 kind of deal. I hate to say it.
See, Jive Jeff says the that's all right.
Yeah.
The Westlake 318 made 540 horsepower.
Yeah.
I mean, that's out today.
Yeah. I mean, today it's not. It's crazy how far we've come. But in the
but in 1970, 1971, that was some serious from a 318 or for a small cubic engine like that. That was some serious.
And a 1,200-pound Indy car too. That's like, what the hell? That must have hold.
So you guys who are more familiar with this, see, that's why I love doing YouTube. Okay, because look how interactive this is.
Yeah.
You know a little bit about something, but there's somebody in the audience that knows even more about it, and you get that give and take. And I come away from a lot of these things learning stuff.
Yeah.
So how you have the Ford. Who the hell was that?
Gurney.
The dual overhead cam Ford.
Okay.
The car motor.
Yep.
What was the relation or the comparison between that engine and the Westlake motor? Was that because I know the Ford motor came first.
Yeah.
Before the Westlake Mopar.
Yeah, 63, late 64, the Indy 564, that dual overhead cam Ford 255 won the race. And then that kind of led to single overhead on 427. They're different, but those were no push rods. The Westlake was a push rod engine, I'm pretty sure. The 318 Indy stuff and the all that stuff. So the difference was overhead cam versus overhead valve. You know what I mean?
Okay. The only thing I know about those Ford motors was there was a fellow named Jim Busby who put a pair of them in a slingshot dragster.
Okay.
Normally aspirated and tried to run the thing in top fuel
Yeah.
in 1971.
Yeah.
But I guess the parts were just too much.
Yeah.
He gave up on the project. But that's the only thing I know of those engines. And I was wondering if there was a direct comparison between the small block Mopar Westlake and.
I imagine probably like a lot of things with Sir Harry Westlake, he probably had the model of the ports that was applicable to you name it. He'll make it work for you. That's probably what that was. Big old port. Goose head, whatever. Yeah.
Okay, what? I pick.
Yeah.
What do I have to pick? You're supposed to pick.
I don't know.
She doesn't want to pick anymore. Steve, what do we do? Yeah, we have to change topics now. Let's get away from Indy cars and stuff like that.
Model cars.
Oddities. Steve. Okay, so there's the everybody has the tale about the Hemi C body, right? Which never existed. I can guarantee you there was never any factory Hemi C bodies, except for one. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Well, that Hearst 300, well, factory built car, or well, the 300M, or what was it called? The 300M of 1966. It was a proposed car, but it
Right,
never.
but that never happened. But the 7300H,
Yeah, that car that was in the magazines.
was it in magazines?
Yeah, we're talking about the 70. It was a street Hemi in a 7300H, which was proven to
Right.
be a homemade creature. That the owner was telling the world it was the real thing. If you look at the air cleaner, it's carved out for the air conditioner compressor. You know, it was a
Okay.
different car. Some of the magazines fell for it, but the reality was that car it had stage 5 heads on it. And Eric Hansen said, "No, man, that guy bought those heads from me."
Okay.
So yeah, he was one of those
Yeah,
guys.
that's why now I know that one existed in 1970 because I've seen pictures of it.
Hemi, okay, somebody put it in, probably. I mean, who knows? You know.
But I mean, the one that you're talking about may or may not have been that car, and what you answered the question before I could even ask it.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny. It's such a specific topic that we both know exactly what we're about to say because yeah. But
All right, Joe K.
there's no VIN. But as we know, in 1966, Chrysler took out AMA papers on a thing called the 300M. L65 M66, and it was going to be a 300 it was going to be a 440-inch engine, and it would make as many as you wanted. It was going to be a 500 built 426 Hemi, but it was going to be a 440 cube Hemi, according to the AMA papers. This is crazy stuff. Motor Trend wrote about it too, and in fact, there's a book by I forget his name. Doesn't matter. It's a Chrysler 300 history, and there's a whole section on the what if, came close, never got built, but probably mules. 440 cubic inch Hemi 66 300M. There's 500 with Hemi power. The rest are going to be normal for you normal cars. But it was also part of the homologation effort. And Chrysler was going to be in there pitching. Didn't make production, but there's probably mules. But there's clays, there's hoods that have Hemi emblems on and stuff like that. It made it quite a way. So, but they filed papers, AMA papers, which doesn't mean a production car resulted, but they were paving the way for competition. You know,
it was more than just talking about it around the table.
And as for sure, there were some independently built C-body NASCAR racers, the Firecracker 400. There was a C-body owned, I think, Bill France. Crazy but true. Bill France was listed as a car owner on a Hemi C-body, maybe making good with Chrysler in '65 with a Hemi C-body that Bill France partly owned. I forget who drove it, but Firecracker 400, 1965. You'll see a C-body Hemi car. There's a couple, 2, 3 of them. And they're made by
right. They were made independent. It was probably a body in white, and they did whatever they had to do. Now, what about the Richard Petty 426 Hemi station wagon?
Yeah, we've heard about that, but it's not a production car. It's probable. Hey, it's built on a hot rod. That could be, but I've never asked him about that. I've talked with Richard and stuff like that, but I've never asked about that specifically. And I don't know. There's supposed to be a magazine ad with it's in a background, or I forget, but. I would doubt that it's a real car. Preparation H, the Hemi car, the Iron Butterfly, those are also homemade cars. Lee Smith had that the crazy cuda with that crazy, that
beautiful car. Yeah,
beautiful car with keystones and all that stuff. But that was a homemade critter, But it was like the Hemi. Well, it was basically made for a certain class to go out and take out a race and blah blah blah. But it wasn't. It was a modified production car, I think. So it didn't have to be mass produced.
All right, we got Joe K here. How about modern muscle oddities? Like the 2017 Chevy SS Holden LS3 manual sedan. Not many were sold here. I'm out of the loop on that.
Yeah, it's kind of like the police interceptor cop car thing there, the Chevy Super Sport, but with a stick shift. Yeah, I mean, in Australia, it's a lot of interesting stuff happened there. And it's great stuff. Yeah, I'm glad that people are today. The thing is, back in the day, people weren't being historic or scholarly about these things. Now people are while they're here. So the production papers, all that stuff is being soaked up now rather than 30 years after the fact. So yeah, that's a weird car for sure. And the GTO, the modern GTO, there's a universe of weird stuff with those things, and thankfully people are documenting the heck out of them. Anyway.
Okay, this is an interesting one. Michael Hayden, 1967 Chrysler shop manual tells of an optional rear end larger than 8 3/4 and smaller than a Dana 60. Was it a typo? Available in the RT 4-speed Coronet. Okay, no, it was not available in the RT 4-speed Coronet. The RT 4-speed was a Dana 60 period at the end. But the rear you're talking about was done in the larger cars with the manual transmission. C-body cars.
We found
you know the details on that rear, Steve?
Yeah, it's a Dana 53. And we found one in a 68 Dodge. It was a Plymouth Sport Fury 440 4-speed. and it was an L code. And under the back was a Spicer. It was a Model 53.
Model
And
53.
it looks like a 60. It's almost as big axles, positive traction, all that stuff. The crazy thing is, on a Dana 60, take the hubcap off, and the hub has that thick flange around it. 8 3/4 kind of thin, but they both have the two little nubbies that stick in like that. Well, the Model 53, if you take the hubcap off, you'd say that's an 8 3/4. It has the same look on the end. Doesn't look like a Dana 60, but you look underneath, the dust cover is there, but it's a little smaller than a 60. It's bigger than a 45. It's the Model 53. Yep. And they also use those in Mercuries in the late 50s and in Lincolns in the early 60s. So yeah, if you had a 440 4-speed in a C body, you got the Model 53, which is a 9 1/4 inch ring gear. So I've never seen one until I saw one, and we made a big deal out of it on Roadkill's Junkyard Gold. Yeah, at Anderson, Stevens Auto Wrecking, we did a whole episode on C bodies, and we found one. And I had them lift the car. I got under the car, and I made it a point to stick the camera right up its face because it was like seeing Elvis, you know. So yeah,
the B body and a couple handful of A bodies. Hemi Darts and Cuda's 4-speed cars had the B body Dana 60 in it. The B body rear was specially made. It has 8 3/4 tubes stuffed into the 8 3/4 or into the Dana 60 housing, right? So it uses 8 3/4 axles, everything except the center of it is 8 3/4.
Yeah.
The 53, I believe, was actually from another application. Like, in other words, it was like an off the shelf thing where they didn't have to make a custom rear. So you follow me?
Yeah, well, I think the tubes and the C-body leaf spring pads and stuff are probably specific. You know, I wouldn't say that that's like from a 59 Lincoln or something like that, or it's probably a thing where it was dialed in for use in a C-body in terms of where the leaf spring.
Well, obviously, they would have to add the perches and everything where it would be on that car, but the actual rear end assembly itself, the tubes, the backing plates, and all of that. Because I know that the backing plates are different; they're not the same.
Well, it looked like Chrysler stuff to me. It was 11 by 2.5 drums in the back. I looked at that stuff real close.
Okay, you would know better than me. I'm just speculating on what I've, you know what I mean. But you've actually encountered these things in real life.
If you get a chance, you know, go to Motor Trend on Demand or whatever it is. But it was at Stevens Auto Wrecking in Anderson, Alabama. He's all Mopars. And we did an episode about C bodies. It was called, what was it, Full Size Fun or something like that. But it's a half hour long, and I do a Sport Fury GT, a 71, 440, the chart, you know, the whole thing. And we did that car. It was a 68 Fury 3 Super Commando L code 440 4-speed car. The hole was still there. The clutch was still. And the crazy thing is, I looked in the trunk of that thing, and many times when the cars are ripped apart, the pieces wind up in the trunk. There was a pressure plate and a clutch disc, and they had 23 splines. So that means that 440 didn't have an 18 spline.
Didn't have 18.
Now, there was it was swapped in, but it was weird. It opened the question: did the C body? You'd think it would, but did it have a 23 or an 18 spline? Don't know, you know. But it looked to me like it was a 23. If that clutch was the original from the car, don't know. It was rotten. It was
there's no saying that the transmission or the clutch were the original ones from the car.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. But it opened the door to that possibility. And it's one of those things you want to know more of. The tranny was gone, but the clutch was in the trunk. Original, you know, it was just thrown in there with all the bits and pieces, the linkage and shit. It was all there. Don't know. But we found that axle. I was like, yes, you know. So I told the producer, he goes, why do you care about that? Just shut up. You know, get the camera over. You know, I told him, just don't worry about it. Because, you know, well, it's not shut. Just be quiet. It's, you know, everybody takes a team. But I usually had to fight for why we're doing this car. Because
no longer, man. No longer. Now
exactly.
You can do your thing.
Yep. I mean, the budget was $38,000 per episode. Like, you know, and I get a fraction of that, by the way. Okay, but we had like 5 rental cars, and we used 2 of them. You know, it was the art of waste, I should say. But you know, God bless them and all that kind of stuff for allowing, for giving coverage and exposure to the idea of going to a junkyard. But you know, damn them for not getting it. The viewers wanted more. They wanted more, and the problem is there's no exit interview. They don't say when your show is gone. They don't tell you when and why and how. They stop calling you. It's like, it's weird, very strange. So anyway,
well,
thank God for you.
For anybody who's joined us, you know, because actually, bro, we've been on for almost 2 hours already, if you can believe it. Anytime we get together, it's just like, woof, the time flies. But anybody who has joined us since the beginning doesn't know, Steve Magnante, he's got his YouTube channel up. It's just Steve Magnante. That's totally, it has to be. So go over there, subscribe, ring the bell, do all of the things you're supposed to, and support, support the man here. You will own, I keep telling you, you will own YouTube.
No.
You will absolutely, you're only doing, let's put it this way. You're only doing this for what? Just a few months now, right?
8 months, yeah.
Right. And you're already getting 20, it's normal for you to get 20, 30,000 views on a video, which is unheard of for somebody who's just getting started here. So, I mean, you're obviously the name recognition carrying over from television helps. But the point is, if you weren't putting out the right stuff, people still aren't going to click on you.
Well, the thing of it too is, I don't have any way to tell people this is going on. So I say to them, how is this happening? Well, I guess people are responding to it. And the one thing I will be doing, Barrett Jackson in 2 weeks, my contract was up this year. I told them, guys, I must check out the Steve Maggs YouTube channel on the show. And that's going to happen. But otherwise, aside from that, I don't really have any way to tell people I'm doing this. So I'm thankful people are tuning in and spreading the word. And I'll try to earn your interest. But to me, it's nice give cars a voice and not having anybody ask me why. I remember at Speed Channel one time, they're long gone, so it doesn't matter. A guy named Hunter Nickel, God bless him, he's good at something, but he says to me, Steve, I'm not a car guy. Tell me why. I'm like, ah. So then I realized, okay, and I flew to Tennessee to speak with him, or North Carolina, excuse me. Charlotte is where it was. And he said, I'm not a car guy. I said, well, then you won't understand why it's cool to find a Boss 302 in the junkyard, because you know what a Mustang is. You know what a Boss 302 is. And he's the guy who ran the network. And that was the beginning.
It shows.
Yeah. It's a weird world, but anyway,
Yeah, that whole world is in the process of jumping the shark. Actually, that world has already jumped the shark, and it's a zombie industry.
Yeah, they'll be around for a while and stuff. But I'll say this, Doors. Who names a band The Doors? Well, somebody asked that stupid question at one point in time. You know what I mean? It's just one of you got to keep pushing. If you
Dripping glass.
Camaro, it's a goofy name. Whatever. Somebody said that for sure. And that idiot's probably sweeping the floor. Hopefully,
that's right. You're free of all of the shackles and constraints of the unbelievers. Now, just go. You know what I mean?
Bring the Hemi back. Bring the Hemi back. What? Okay. Anyway, it's famouslastwords.com, right, or whatever. Okay.
Dripping Glass wants to know, how close did the ball stud Hemi come to production?
Very. Yeah. Very, right. I mean,
they had a handful of them running around the proving grounds.
Yeah, like 50 or 60 engines. It was a Coronet. There was, Landy got one. And the thing of it is, it was kind of a big block Chevy tribute, is what it was. Stamp rockers.
It wasn't a tribute. It was a big block Chevy. Yeah. No matter how you look at it, it was a big block Chevy, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. The big block Chevy obviously has proven itself over the years, and in terms of just overall performance, yes. Normally aspirated, especially normally aspirated, the big block Chevy is superior to the 426 Hemi. The 426 Hemi shines where, like in a super stock class, where it's a power to weight thing, like a Hemi Dart or a Hemi Cuda, right? And it shines when you supercharge it and blow huge volumes of fuel. When you put the garden hose, down the port, right? The 426 Hemi, nothing beats the 426 Hemi. But in terms of normally aspirated or alcohol, just the big block Chevy is it. It's a superior design, no matter how you look at it. So the ball stud Hemi would have been an improvement, and yes, it was exactly the combustion chambers, the whole valve train, everything was an exact copy of the big block Chevy.
The thing that's kind of cool about him is that Landy had one of those, and he didn't do it a disservice, but it had huge stamped tin valve covers. He sprayed them black, crackle black. They would have been probably blue. Can you imagine a big blue valve cover? The valve cover looked kind of like a diesel, but it's a big, weird, flat valve cover. No holes. The plugs are down the bottom, but it would have been a tin cover. I wish somebody would have done that engine as it was meant to look in just a regular satellite. There was mules running around. So it was a good engine, but I think there was a 6-pack version on the books, and there was going to be a a little tiny one, and it would have been the next phase in the Hemi. But getting away from the double rocker, the expense of all that stuff, going to stamp rockers, it probably wouldn't have been a high rever, but it probably would have been good, But yeah, it came close. Scale of 1 to 10, I give it a 3, which is better than a 0 or a 1. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Matt S. Have you guys ever heard of the aluminum 318 Magnum production style blocks from the 90s? There's a guy who owns 2 of them. He uses one with Edelbrock heads and an intake on it. Wish I could find that story.
I would guess that guy is probably connected with either one of the off-road teams or something. I know that Dodge certainly trickled a bunch of weird stuff out. This guy named Chris Cady lives in Detroit. He's got a lot of weird stuff, aluminum slant six heads and stuff like that.
Right.
So a lot of prototype stuff. That's probably what those things were. Yeah, they're not aftermarket. They're definitely from Chrysler, but they might have been from a Trans Am or an SCC, an IROC program or something like that. Probably.
Well,
You know.
I'll tell you what. If you use a poly block for an example, and the poly block is structurally identical to the later 318 and the Magnum blocks. If you look at a poly block, you could cast that in aluminum exactly the way it sits.
Yeah.
And it would be more than up to there's enough strength everywhere because those blocks are just strong, right? So yeah, I don't see that as being a very far-fetched thing.
Yeah.
That there would be aluminum 318 blocks kicking around because just based on the tooling that they already had, you could cast an aluminum block and not have a big deal.
Yep.
You couldn't really do that with, let's say, a 426 Hemi. You couldn't just take a regular 426 Hemi block, and just recast it in aluminum. It wouldn't work. It's not thick enough in certain areas. It would have to be revised like they did with the Milodon, the KB, the JP1, and all of those blocks. You would have to actually revise the block to cast it in aluminum. But the small block Mopar, I think you could cast one straight, just instead of pouring cast iron, pour aluminum, and I think that thing would just.
Yeah. And they're probably engineering test pieces. That stuff happens a lot. Cool. I mean, it's good to be an insider. I'd like to know who that guy is. He's probably somebody who knows somebody who works at Dodge. Just stuff that trickled out when it wasn't needed.
All right, what do we got here? Sam Wackerly. Steve, the vids are getting better and better. Don't dismiss the flatheads. 54 Packard, 359 cubes with 212 horsepower. Really? Okay, still anemic, but 9 main bearings.
Yeah. Sam Wackley, he's one of the producers at Speed Channel. I hope he wasn't offended by some of my discussion about the velocity whole thing. But Sam is one of the producers of Junkyard. There's a show in Maryland, the Junkyard thing there, right? Junkyard, whatever it is. But anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah, Sam has a Packard 359. That's his car in the picture right there. And we talked about that a lot. He was going to put a Packard in a BMW. And apparently at Bonneville, there's a class for odd creations. And he thought, well, there's a hole in the book, and I'm going to make it go. So he may finish it. But yes, it's an amazing thing, the Packard 359. 9 main bearings.
Yeah, I was just I got to ask about this now. Where did they put all, where did you put all the main bearings? How do you get 9 of them in there?
Heavy, long and heavy. I mean, that was, and again, like you say, iron was cheap. And again, the bigger and heavier, the less vibration. You know what I mean? It was a big lump that would cancel its own vibrations. But that's what the Packard engines were. Go to a junkyard.
Well, that's fine, but where the hell did you put 9? Like, I could see 7 on an inline 6.
Long ass block, just long block.
Oh, wait, it's straight 8.
Yeah, straight 8.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So 9. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
But just a wacky
thing. Right.
That had a single 4-barrel. I mean, a flathead 8 with a 4-barrel carburetor. Yeah, Packard did that, I think, for 1 year, and Sam's got one. But Sam Wackley, what's up, man? He's a good dude. So anyway. All
right. What do we got here? Wayne Ferguson wants to know: Are we going to see Steve's Hemi engine display? Well, I'll tell you what. We're going to cut this off at 2 hours. We're at 157 right now. Steve, you want to crack out that display motor?
Let me go grab it. Hang on 2 seconds. All right. Yeah, it's dusty as heck. But here's the deal, right? The way this thing works is you build these things, and it's on the bottom is like a battery and a little motor and stuff like that. This thing here. Trouble is, there's an O-ring that goes from this to that, and there's a pulley on the back of this thing. The trouble is, the O-ring breaks. So what you do is you turn it by hand. Hang on. We go like. Hang on. Here we go. And you can kind of see the crank turning. Crap. I don't know. Anyway.
Oh yeah, there it goes.
Yeah. So you turn it like that, and the junk inside turns around. Here we go.
That's awesome. Oh yeah. I'm watching the exhaust valves open and close.
Yeah, but it's a nice. I mean, it's a nice model. I mean, it's very, very. It's nice. But the thing of it is, there's a button here that you're supposed to push. This thing right here, and it made a sound. It sounded like a Cummins. There was a lot of complaints. Testers, the company that used to make spray paint and stuff, that's the company. Testers makes these things. They're about $80 or $90, and it's a great, great model. I mean, it's really well done. A couple of AFBs under the air cleaner right here, and the progressive linkage. right there.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
great.
I'm looking at
Yeah.
so it's a 69 and earlier motor, and
Yeah.
it's got a direct drive starter the way it's
Yeah.
supposed to.
Yeah, the right pan with a sump on it and stuff right here.
Yep,
You know,
yep. It's got the right damper on it.
manifold with the heat riser stuff on the back. The tubes are there.
Yep.
I mean, it's
Turn,
really,
let me see the alternator, Steve. Is that? Yeah, yeah. It's got the dual the dual
and
cooling
it
alternator.
turns, you know, but it's you can see kind of the
Oh, that's great.
yeah. So, but when they're built, I don't know. All I can say is you have to probably blueprint it and really micro polish stuff, and then the little electric motor and the O-ring wouldn't spin, but rather turn it over. So it's a great model, but you got to go manual override on the thing. So
I
anyway,
think it needs a little light in there.
yeah, great. If we can I show off one thing? I'm a
Yeah,
model.
of course.
Anybody who hasn't built this kit, get one, and it's one of the top 10 model kits of all time. And here's one here that's pretty much right out of the box, and you build
beautiful.
but it's the first altered wheelbase model that's been done as a historical item and not like a toy. And it has a nice injected Hemi. We're trying to find the stupid thing. Here we go. I'm dyslexic. There we go. But basically, it's a nicely done little Hemi. Well, I finished mine. I actually finished mine. It's done, and here it is here. And I built.
Nice. Very nice, beautiful, Steve.
Yeah, I did the wheels. I painted it and stuff like that. And I put an 8 3/4 in the back because the Dana that comes with it kind of sucks. But the wheels are these are from the Johan turbine car. The wheels on this thing, but the engine, I detailed it and stuff. But it's a great model. And
I see the torsion bar mounts are correct.
Yep, these are the extensions.
Yeah.
But it's a great little model, and it goes together beautifully. So anyway, get yourself, and you got to paint it. I did this stuff, and one thing is, this thing that sucks about candy paint is that I put one extra coat on the back. I actually masked this stuff, and it came out all right, But it starts with that, and you take it to that. It took me about
beautiful.
But,
Just so for the record, on those, for people who don't know, on those altered wheelbase cars, they used a C-body length torsion bar on the car, and the C-body torsion bar is a bigger diameter than the B-body bar, so they had to add those extensions underneath the torsion bar cross member to actually fit the C-body bar in there and get the wheelbase all the way out where it was. So those models are extremely accurate that they have those torsion bar perches on there.
They actually photograph the car, which exists, and this is kind of crazy too. There's an A990 they offer, which is a regular
single exhaust.
They did it right, man. It's so cool because they actually had this, and you could fill out with lead or whatever you wanted, but it satisfied the NHRA rule book. They had a single exhaust or an exhaust system. Anyway,
so for people who don't know, those race Hemi cars came shipped from the factory with a 2-inch diameter single exhaust. So it came. They had those crazy massive freaking headers, and they had the cutouts and everything else. And then they had one pipe. They had a balance tube between the two, where the collectors are. There was a balance tube, and off the balance tube came one little pipe that ran clear to the back of the car, went under the axle instead of going over the axle, so you could just pop it on and off real quick. And it had a transverse muffler that hung under the back bumper with a little single exhaust. So if you went and you ordered your brand new A990 super stock car from the factory, it came with a single exhaust.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Oh, is Steve still? Oh, Gurney president, is Steve going? Still doing Barrett Jackson?
Yeah. In fact, we're on the air the 24th through the 30th, 40 hours, and a lot of good stuff. Scottsdale is always where the big money comes out, but the rare, weird stuff. So it'll be a good show. Yeah. In fact, about 15 years ago or 10 years ago, the 66 4-door red Hemi Coronet sold for $660,000 at Barrett Jackson. I was there. And it was the same money a Duesenberg sold for. I made that point on TV. $660,000. I thought, street Hemi, and it was a 4-door. Try that today. I don't know, but with that said,
the guy's name was Bill DiGilio. We were talking about this at the beginning of the show, and I'm remembering now. His name was Bill DiGilio, and he had the car for sale for $1 million.
Wow,
that was his asking price on the car. But I guess that's what it brought at auction.
Yeah, 6-0. Yeah, that was a.
Mr. Will, $10. Thank you for the super chat, Mr. Will. UT and Steve, my late father-in-law told me he bought a new '68 Charger 383 with 3 2-barrels 4-speed. I never questioned on it, but I know it was never offered. Was that available by a dealer installation option? Yes, it was, but not in 1968.
Yeah, Edelbrock makes a low deck 383 6-pack manifold. They probably sell 4 of them a year, but it exists.
Okay, but if you go back to 1970, you could go to any Chrysler dealer and they had the Hustle Stuff catalog. And you could order a low deck. I don't know why they didn't offer the 6-pack from the factory on a low deck. I have no idea. But you could order a complete 3D3 6-pack setup, which would have the same carburetors as the 440, same everything as the 440, but on a low deck intake manifold. And that was available over the counter at any Dodge dealer, Chrysler dealer, Plymouth dealer. So it could have been that your friend or your father-in-law brought his then 2-year-old car in and said, hey, put one of them 6-packs on there, and he would have a dealer installed 6-pack setup. So his tale is not completely out of the question. It's entirely possible.
Yeah. But there's no engine code for the 3D3 6-pack.
There's no engine code for it. No. But again, see, so here's where you get into some really oddball stuff that never actually made it. So let's just assume it's 1970, okay? And you're going to buy a Roadrunner, a 383 Roadrunner off the lot, a built car. You're not going to order it. But you want a 6-pack. There's absolutely nothing that would have prevented the dealership from putting the car in the service department, pulling a factory 6-pack setup, the 383, the one that was available, bolting it on there, and you would drive off the showroom floor with a brand new 383 6-pack Roadrunner. It's entirely possible, but there wouldn't be any engine code for it.
Yeah, and financed it too, potentially. That came in, I think, after 72, the Clean Air Act, manipulating factory installed emission stuff. And in 70, yes, it could have been done. Yeah, and Mr. Norms was only too happy to do stuff like that.
Right. Well, that's the GSS, the 340 6-pack Demons.
Yeah, the GSSs and stuff. Yeah.
Right. Well, that was a factory setup. You go to any Chrysler dealer and say, I want a 340 6-pack setup, and there it is. Everything you need: linkages, air cleaner, the whole 10 yards. And although he didn't use the factory air cleaner, he used that universal one that says Tri-Power on it,
right?
Which is actually a Ford. Mr. Norms used a Ford air cleaner on his factory, on his dealership available 6-pack cars.
If it works,
If it works, it works. Right. Tales from the Junkyard, $4.99. Thank you, sir. UTG and Steve, what's the craziest polyhead setup you've ever encountered?
I know that right now, Chrysler Power Magazine, they have the poly pack and stuff. They're sort of pumping on the poly. It's an interesting engine. The trouble with the poly, as you probably know, the ports are only so big, and you can't hog them out without getting water.
It's the exhaust side is the problem.
So I don't know. I think there's a 380 or 400-inch Chrysler Power Magazine has a Project Poly, and I think it's like almost 400 cubes and like 430 horse or something like that. I think it even has a dual quad on it. So that's probably it, but that's about all.
Well, for the Plymouth Poly, the A motor, anything you can do to any stroker kit that'll bolt into a 318 A motor, LA motor, or Magnum will bolt right into a poly head. And even the pistons, you could use 318 pistons, but you have to clearance a little notch on the exhaust side if you're going to do anything bigger than a
poly. The valves they're kind of like almost like a big block Chevy, a little not
right
painted valves. They're like that. So, and the idea is to get the valve away from the wall toward the inboard without going to the expense of Hemis with rockers and shafts and all that.
Now I did see the craziest poly heads. I've never encountered it myself. But there was, and see, if you go back to the very late 50s, early 60s, there was so many hot rod oriented magazines around.
Yeah.
One of them was like Speed and Rod Custom Build or whatever it happened to be. I don't even remember. But they did a story on a dragster, a fuel dragster that was using a Chrysler poly, the Spitfire poly, which is the Chrysler Hemi head, but with the single rocker shaft poly head on it. So that's the craziest thing I've ever seen. Now, whether the car actually worked, well, obviously it didn't work. Otherwise, they don't be running polys.
And it had a blower on it.
It was a top fuel car, circa 1959. I guess when was the fuel ban? 1959, right?
I think it was I think
so. I guess it was right before the fuel ban, 1958. I don't know, whatever it was, but it was a top fueler. My bro's 71, Robert Kuntz, my bro's 71 Cuda Honolulu police car had an AR package from the factory.
Well,
I could believe that.
The weird thing about the 71 AAR, I don't know, 70. It's sometimes hindsight gets foggy, but hey, I don't know. I'd like to see the pictures, but that's kinky. An AAR
But you
71.
see, from the factory, meaning that it could have been from the dealership. So if you went and you bought a 71 340 CUDA, and you were going to use that as a police car, so you order like as a bear stripper car, you could tell them, I want the 6-pack set up on there. And the dealership would just have to go to the parts department and say, give me a 6-pack, a 340 6-pack set up, and then run it over to the service department and bolt it down, and you would have driven out with a brand new 340 6-pack 71 CUDA. Yes, customs. Speaking of dealer installed options, not a Mopar. Well, my friend in middle school, high school ended up with a 66 Mustang Sprint 200 and could never really get any information on it outside a sentence.
Well, the Sprint 200 was just the Falcon Sprint. The Sprint 200, I believe, had a chrome air cleaner and a chrome valve cover on Falcons. And keep in mind, the Mustang, the 200 was the base motor in a Mustang, so it's not saying much. But it's just a one barrel. It might have had like a chrome air cleaner or something like that. But it was an interesting little engine. There was a 170 and a 144. If you want to talk small Ford 6-bangers, imagine a 144-inch 6-cylinder. Anyway, what they did at Falcon, no Mustang.
So you take a car like that. Now you talk about muscle car oddities, right? I'm talking about dealers and stuff like that. Here's something that's entirely possible as customs with that car or anything else that kind of fits that mold. So if you were a Ford dealer, and you remember now you've got your showroom, you got your cars in the showroom, you got the hoods open, okay? And people are interested in high performance things, they're interested in flash, bling, or whatever. There would be nothing to stop you from taking one of the car comes off the truck and like doll that thing up with the Sprint package, the Sprint stuff, and stick it on the showroom floor. There's nothing that would stop you from doing that. And so it's entirely possible. That could have been not on the assembly line, but done before the car was ever sold, just to dress it up and add a little spice, a little bling for something that was sitting on the showroom floor.
Yeah, I think the Ford Mustang would be a T code 6-cylinder car and 65th spot T 6-banger, and it probably would be a Ford Falcon Sprint air cleaner added to a Mustang. It would be chrome. It would say Sprint 6 on it, Sprint 200. But I think Ford, and I don't think they ever used the Sprint stuff, but a Falcon would bolt right on. And, that's probably what was going on with that. But, I mean, who really cares? Well, I do, but the little details we all get uptight about. But, hey, yes, the 300L. Yep. The center 300L.
Well, the Dodge Polara also had that.
Yeah, well, there's the, what was it? The Sylvania's, it was like a tungsten halogen light.
It was like the first halogen bulb ever used on a car.
But in 65, the 300L, the final letter car, the L in the medallion had a bulb in it. So it didn't really do anything, it didn't project light, but it was a little 1137.
A little bit of flash, yeah.
Yeah, the L, only on the letter car. That was the only letter car that had an illuminated center grille. But again, it wasn't a headlight. But yes, there was what was it called? The Sylvania, the nightlight thing. What the heck was it called? Anyway, we found one of those in the junkyard too. But anyway.
Todd Dino. I've seen one in the owner assisted one. What? Which one was that?
He was just talking about that was his other comment.
The Sprint?
No, the Chrysler.
Oh, okay.
Let's see.
What was that called? God, it was Sylvania made it. They're in Massachusetts. Sold to Chrysler. It was a halogen lamp, and it was on the driver's side inboard, and they had to cut the grill, but there was a specific. There was a name for it.
Yeah.
God, the super light.
The super light.
Yeah,
that's right. The super light.
Yeah. And there's actually, those have a strange little toggle added to the car inside. It was a repurposed convertible top button that was repurposed with a little super light thing on it that was drilled and put into the car. Now, super light was a factory option. It wasn't dealer installed. So there should be a code somewhere on the paper for that thing, but that's what that was, the super light.
Fastang 85 is asking, Steve, are you doing any more Junkyard Gold videos?
Well, yes, I am. Yeah, in fact, we just got snow 2 days ago. The day before.
No, wait, Steve, wait. He's asking about Junkyard Gold.
Gold, yeah. Well, to that point, no. Junkyard Crawl, yes. Junkyard Gold, no. And the thing of it is, Junkyard Gold was Roadkill's Junkyard Gold. We did 32 episodes, 3 seasons. That's been dead since before COVID. So a lot of the crazy thing is, like, all I can say is this is no comparison, but people like Danny Bonaducci, who was in the Partridge Family, right? All of his life, people would walk up and say, "So when's the Partridge Family coming back?" And he'd say, "That was 7 years ago." See, I walk down the street, people think that Junkyard Gold because they saw it on TV last night or whatever. That's 3 years ago. It's the last time we did one of those. So I have to tell people, well, it's over, it's done. What do you mean? Well, I don't know, call Motor Trend. So, but I do it myself now. But yeah, Junkyard Gold ran 3 seasons and it's over and out. And that's whatever. It's fine.
But Steve posts nearly every day now on his own channel,
Yeah.
Steve Magnante. So go over there and like and the whole bit. Subscribe. Go subscribe to Steve. If you're not subscribed to Steve, go over there. Stop what you're doing. Go over there right now. Subscribe and ring the bell. And make sure you like every video that he does. And share every video that he does.
And the difference is, Junkyard Gold was a half-hour show. Junkyard Crawl is about 4 to 9 minutes, but there's like 200 of them. So binge, And I don't do a half-hour episode. It's these are hey, they're sort of like one hits, like a caption, whereas a half-hour episode is a different thing.
Fubar the Axe, our awesome mod, is putting the link to his channel right now. And guys, I think we need to wait, one more question here. Steve Steger says, Steve, do you know of any of the Mexican Shelby Mustangs? I have only seen like 3 pictures and no information about them.
Yeah, there were things that were blessed by Carroll Shelby, but they're kind of decontented, watered down. They carried the Shelby name. They were generally coupes, not fastbacks, not convertibles, coupes. And yeah, there's a handful of them. They're pretty cool. Oh yeah, that's great.
All right, Steve. People constantly ask me, when is Steve going to be on? You're more popular on my channel than I am. I don't know if I should be. I don't know if my feelings should be hurt. So when are we going to get together again?
Oh, anytime. Well, between here and the 22nd, when I fly to Barrett Jackson, my mission is to fill these, which now are empty, with notes on the cars for the auction. And here's the thing, right? We're on the air for 40 hours, and that's a great opportunity to really screw up and start guessing and really making a mess out of things by the end of the week, right? So I have something to say about every single car. So I sit down with the docket, which right now, if you want to see the auction online, just go to barrettjackson.com. The whole docket is there with vehicles, descriptions, and stuff. So what I do is I look at every car we're going to be on the air for and make some note about it, or pick up on the fact that GTO has a 3-speed stick, which then I'll say, hey, program, let's look under this one. Okay, and then, but if I don't know that in advance, when it's on the block, they can't change cameras and get the camera on the underside of that car, the chassis cam. So I'll be doing that for 40 hours. It takes an hour of prep for every hour on the air. With that said, it's an honor and a lot of fun. So anyway, between here and there, but after Barrett Jackson, let us do another one.
Sometime in February, we'll get together. We try to make it a point to get together once a month.
Yeah.
So sometime in February, after he's all done and we've got all our stuff going on, we'll get together sometime in February. And or February, Valentine's Day is in February. Let's get together for Valentine's Day and talk about things we love.
Okay. Yeah, I like that.
All right. Things we love about cars, things, machines, engines, or whatever.
Like it. All right. Okay.
So we'll do that tentative. So in the meantime, guys, are awesome mods, right? So you have to start doing lives. When are you going to start doing lives?
Well, soon or something. I'm at baby steps.
You can do it anytime. You look how easy this is.
Yeah, it's true. The people at High Gain Classics, there's a fellow named Shane Richardson, who's my tech guy. And I'll talk to him, hey, you want to do? Yeah, fine. He'll walk me through it, because it's one of those things where I don't know what I don't know about some of this stuff. Takes a team. So soon, I guess,
I know nothing about this. This is my whole tech team right here, Uncle Kathy, who we now call Applesauce. She has a new name. She has no more Uncle Kathy. Now her name is Applesauce. We call her Applesauce. So she's 100% the whole tech team. I know nothing about this stuff. I know how to plug that in and take the plug back out. That's it. I know how to move the mouse to make the thing come on. That's it. It's as far as I go. Right? It's like I keep my hands strictly in the cars. But anyway, listen, guys, everybody, super chat, everybody contributed to super chat. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. It keeps the wheels turning. It keeps the bills paid. We keep doing this crazy stuff that we do. Our fantastic mods, John, Ari, Fubar, Zero. I'm sorry we didn't get and our regulars. I know I see all of our regulars on here. And we do it every Wednesday night. We do every Sunday night, and usually I do these weekend night shows for the crowd so that we can all get together and talk and so on and so forth. And guys, I'm so sorry if like we didn't interact with you more. This happens every time he and I get together. We just and so
that's what you're supposed to.
that's what I know.
Well,
Well, this isn't really a podcast. This is supposed to be a give and take thing, right? So, but yeah, guys, I love you. I didn't mean to ignore anybody that was in there. We'll catch up on Wednesday night with Dallas. And Steve, thank you so much. Anything you need to plug?
Yeah, just check out the Steve Mignani YouTube channel, and every day a new video comes up. And Barrett Jackson, tune in if you'd like. It's going to be on the History Channel, and I think the FYI, etc. But 24 through 30, a lot of neat cars. Should be good.
All right, guys, we're going to pull the plug. Thank you again, Steve. I'll talk to you. I'll give you a call later on this week, but we'll get together. We'll plan on something in February. So I'm going to pull the plug now and make everybody go away. Thank you all. Have a fantastic week, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay.